Chapter 1746, Fleeing Underground 3. As for stepping on the waves to cross over, this was impossible. But Su Luo always felt that under this dark green-colored river, a great danger was hidden at its bottom. This was something her sixth sense told her. If it wasn't necessary, Su Luo really didn't want to invite trouble. Now placed in front of Su Luo was two roads. One was to think of a way to cross over this dark river to the other side. The other way was to return from the road she came from and return to Nangong Liuyun's side. As long as she could cross this dark river, very quickly, she would see the maze of the fourth challenge. But if she was to return to Nangong Liuyun's side, it would be a long road back. Moreover, she might bring back Dongfang Xian, who had great fighting power. Before, she had specifically run away so she could draw Dongfang Xian away. Now why would she bring him back? If she just so happened to encounter them battling together, and Dongfang Xian helped the gigantic dragon, then wouldn't she regret to death? So after much thought, Su Luo still decided to first cross this river, and then discuss it. How to cross this river safely? This was a question worth pondering over. Suddenly, Su Luo recalled the scene when Nangong Luyun brought her back to land from the East China Sea. At that time, it was merely two wooden boards, but Nangong Luyun brought her over the seas confidently and easily as if ice skating, and the speed was also very fast. The corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked into a smile. Soon after, she found a wooden board, deciding to imitate Nangong Liuyun's methods from that time. But when Su Luo was just preparing to put the wooden board into the river, she discovered that the ground trembled slightly. Not good. Su Luo cried out in alarm. She lifted her head to look. Sure enough, Dongfang Xian stood in front of her with a gloomy face. His gaze was like a hungry wolf's, staring at her in a frosty manner. Su Luo's body suddenly had the feeling of being chilled to the bones. Right now, Dongfang Xian was like a volcano about to explode, giving people an extremely terrifying feeling. It made people really want to take to their heels and run. Su Luo's heart was somewhat anxious, but her face still remained calm as water. She smiled and said in a composed manner, "Brother Dongfang, long time no see oh." Long time no see? Dongfang Xian fumed with rage and bit out each word. His tone was even as he grinded out these four words. It's you who hasn't seen me for a long time. As for me, I need to thank Dongfang Xian for carrying me along the way. Su Luo's smile was as dazzling as the fireworks. Her eyes had a trace of being pleased with herself and ridicule. Su Luo's ghost of a smile and attitude ignited Dongfang Xian's rage that he had specifically suppressed. Loathsome girl. Die. Dongfang Xian, this time, didn't even waste any time to say superfluous words to Su Luo. He directly used his biggest killing move. Ice and fire both soared to the sky. Dongfang Xian bellowed. In an instant, it seemed that the temperature in the surroundings dropped to freezing point. One after another, ignited columns of flames shot towards Su Luo from all directions. In a flash, the cold ice sealed both of Su Luo's feet, making it hard for her to move even half a step. The thick columns of flames shot over like arrows, carrying with them sound that could split the sky, surging up violently like the tide with matchless power. Su Luo wanted to avoid it, but discovered a long time ago that she couldn't move a single step. Now she stood there like a statue, motionless, and could only become a living target. Only one move, the situation changed dramatically. Su Luo now was in an extremely dangerous circumstance. Dongfang Xian, this move used 100% of his power. It came like torrential rain. It could be seen how furious he was at this time. He was almost on the edge of going insane. But could Su Luo really become a motionless target while alive? This was clearly impossible. Although he had learned from previous experiences, Dongfang Xian's calculation still had a little hole. Chapter 1747. 8 Claws Strange Water Creature. 1. Dongfang Xian only prevented Su Luo from drilling underground again. So he set a firm defense on the ground. But at this time, the variant acacia tree's roots were quickly spreading into the layer of ice. Soon after, one could see Su Luo at the center of the ice layer. Like a spider web, it spread out in all directions, breaking apart. In the wake of the spider web fracturing, Su Luo's figure charged forward. Over the top of her head, 2 columns of fire collided, giving off a sizzling noise and red-hot rays of light. Su Luo covered her head while falling to the ground, subconsciously wrapping herself in nothingness of space to avoid the aftereffects of the attack. Dongfeng Xian saw Su Luo avoid it, and the rage in his heart reached the peak. He took a step forward, his hand once again releasing another endless stream of attacks. Now Su Luo couldn't move freely. If she was hit directly, naturally, her life would be in danger. Things having reached this stage, Su Luo could only take out her trump card. One only saw Su Luo's hand wave, and a figure slowly appeared in front of Su Luo. That tall figure gave people a very safe feeling. Mo, Elder Ancestor Mo. Seeing the person in front, Dongfeng Xian was so surprised that he almost bit off his tongue. How could Elder Ancestor Mo be here? Entering the secret roaming dragon territory. Had an age restriction, No matter what, Elder Ancestor Mo shouldn't be able to enter, But the person in front of him clearly was Central Palace's Mo family's elder ancestor. Dongfeng Xian had seen him before, so he definitely couldn't be mistaken. Elder Ancestor Mo's ice-cold gaze stared at him, not saying a word. What's going on? Dongfeng Xian turned to ask Su Luo. Su Luo had already gotten up, calmly standing by Elder Ancestor Mo's side. That unhurried appearance. It was impossible to see the sorry figure she cut just now. Her lips hooked into a ghost of a smile. What's going on? It's just like you guessed, Hearing this, Dongfeng Xian subconsciously lifted his head to look at Elder Ancestor Mo. Purgatory City doesn't have any grievance nor hatred with Central Palace. Let alone to say, this is a fight among the younger generation. Can Elder Ancestor Mo stand on the side and act as a witness? Dongfeng Xian knew Elder Ancestor Mo's strength was formidable. Before, he was already at the summit of saint rank. He simply couldn't beat Elder Ancestor Mo. Dongfeng Xian was quite afraid of Elder Ancestor Mo. So he used righteousness to pressure him. He also used a sincere tone to ask Elder Ancestor Mo not to get involved. But today, it was bound to leave Dongfeng Xian disappointed, because Elder Ancestor Mo's inner core had already been changed into the little stone. The little stone's mouth hooked into an indifferent smile, and slowly spit out a word. No. Dongfeng Xian was immediately at a loss for words. His expression became more grave. Elder Ancestor Mo insists on getting involved? Elder Ancestor Mo smiled apathetically. Must. Elder Ancestor Mo answered neither slowly nor quickly, but angered Dongfeng Xian to almost spit out blood. At this moment, Dongfeng Xian's hand at his side clenched into fists, with the veins protruding out. But he did his best to endure before finally saying coldly, Elder Ancestor Mo, why should you persistently continue to pressure? In fact, the little stone also didn't want to fight with him. His body hadn't fused completely with Elder Ancestor Mo's body. Now Dongfeng Xian's strength had grown, so his chance of winning was only 50-50. But what's interesting was that Dongfeng Xian didn't know Elder Ancestor Mo's current situation. He still regarded Elder Ancestor Mo as someone at the summit of saint rank. Therefore he had a lot of restrained fear, with his hands and legs tied. You can choose to leave. The little stone's deeply cold voice slowly said. Dongfeng Xian was extremely mad. With great difficulty, he had finally caught Su Luo after a long chase. Must he really let her go? Really wasn't willing. All of a sudden, a trace of suspicion flashed through Dongfeng Xian's eyes and he said, seeing that last time, Master gave you a space bag. Won't you be flexible for this one time? Chapter 1748. 8-clawed strange water creature 2. No. The little stone replied straightforwardly. But, although he was refused, Dongfeng Xian's gaze slowly lit up. In the end, it was bright as the stars. You are not Elder Ancestor Mo. Dongfeng Xian's tone was very certain. Su Luo secretly said, not good in her heart. Never expected that the little stone's matter would so quickly be exposed. It can be assumed that it was that sentence from before. He heard some clues from the little stone's answer. Faced with Dongfeng Xian's certain tone, the little stone was non-committal. Only the mockery at the corner of his mouth became even stronger. Tell me in the end, who are you? Where did the real Elder Ancestor Mo go? How did you enter Elder Ancestor Mo's body? Dongfeng Xian's tone had a trace of decoding a mystery. This was very important to him, because this meant that he could also refine out a strong expert as his puppet. Elder Ancestor Mo's pair of pitch-black deriding eyes glanced at him, using the kind of gaze of looking at an idiot to glance at him. Dongfang Xian responded only after sensing this fact. His gaze landed on Su Luo's body. "This is your puppet?" Su Luo had both hands crossed over her chest, looked at him with a ghost of a smile. She didn't nod or shake her head. "Do you want to fight? If not, we'll be leaving," Su Luo very kindly reminded him. With the additional appearance of Elder Ancestor Mo, Dongfang Xian really didn't know what he ought to do. Because of his original restrained fear towards Elder Ancestor Mo, at this moment, he ought to leave and stay far away from here. But he finally caught up to Su Luo after a very difficult chase. How could his heart be willing to let go? Just when Dongfang Xian was hesitating, Elder Ancestor Mo suddenly moved. A scarlet-red lava warped towards Dongfang Xian. No one expected that Elder Ancestor Mo would take a preemptive strike. Even Dongfang Xian didn't expect it, so he didn't react in the beginning. In fact, he didn't know that the moment Elder Ancestor Mo appeared, Su Luo and Elder Ancestor Mo had already decided Dongfang Xian must be killed to seal his mouth. If the matter of Elder Ancestor Mo being controlled by Su Luo was spread out, the consequences would be very serious. Therefore, in this secret roaming dragon territory, Dongfang Xian must die. Faced with Elder Ancestor Mo's attack that approached with strong momentum, after Dongfang Xian's attention swayed, he very quickly gave a response. Endless ice and snow spread towards that flaming lava. Both sides met together in midair. Ice and fire were innately opposite. This forced each other to disappear. They had just begun the fight when a different expression flashed through Dongfang Xian's eyes. This Elder Ancestor Mo's strength, had it atrophied? Actually wasn't as strong as what he knew. Could it be that after becoming a puppet, strength would decline by a level? From saint rank reduced to commander level? Dongfang Xian's heart was full of questions, but these questions, only Su Luo could answer them. Therefore Dongfang Xian decided that after this battle, he would seize Su Luo and interrogate her for the answers until he understood. The two people fought in midair. The wind from their palm strikes whistled by. Occasionally, ice would freeze over the world, and occasionally, lava would surge. The fight was very intense. Underneath, Su Luo had her arms crossed over her chest, eyes half narrowed. Her gaze was staring at the battle situation. The situation seemed to be pretty good. Elder Ancestor Mo was slightly stronger than Dongfang Xian. So he had a 60% of winning, adding to the fact that the little stone was a super strong expert from countless years ago. His fighting experience was unmatched. Therefore, the little stone had another 10% chance of winning. In total, he had a 70% grasp of winning. Then, as long as the little stone didn't make a mistake, then the victor of this battle would definitely be Su Luo's side. Su Luo watched with interest this battle that broke new grounds. Her heart had a faint comprehension. And just at this moment, a misfortune suddenly occurred. Chapter 1749, 8-Clawed Strange Water Creature 3. One only saw, behind Su Luo, in the middle of the peaceful Black River, a strange water creature slowly stretch out its head to scout out. Its silver-white gaze stared coldly at the two battling in mid-air. Its gaze was exceptionally cold. Soon after, its gaze shifted down in the end, fixing on Su Luo's body. The split second it saw Su Luo, one could clearly see its nose move. Such a fragrant smell. The strange water creature with 8 tentacles looked suspiciously at Su Luo. It was somewhat puzzled. In its impression, the human race's meat was sour, astringent and very unpalatable. But how could that human race's body give off such a delicious smell? Just like the most delicious food in the world. A string of saliva hung at the 8-tentacled strange water creature's mouth. The saliva flowed down, drip by drip landing on the lake's surface. A ripple immediately appeared on the originally peaceful lake's surface. One after another, circular ripples spread out. Afterwards, the head it stuck out to check suddenly lowered. The surface of the lake suddenly lost traces of it. Its disappearance was like its appearance, not attracting anyone's attention. But if you noticed it, you would discover that after an instant, its ugly head once again scouted out and was exposed above the surface of the lake. And at this time he was a distance of less than 10 meters from Su Luo. And Su Luo, just as luck would have it, stood at the lake's bank with her back to the lake. Right now, she watched the battle of experts at the summit with rapt attention while holding her breath. Her heart was faintly stirred by a bit of understanding, but that inspiration flitted by. It disappeared too quickly, so Su Luo simply couldn't catch it. Now she was trying nonstop to recall that inspiration, trying to remember what it was. Just when Su Luo sunk into this state, suddenly a slight noise rose her from her thoughts, and Su Luo's head subconsciously turned to look. This glance almost scared Su Luo silly. She saw that less than a meter away was a huge head coming towards her. That huge mouth, sharp fangs and sinister appearance of dripping with saliva. It made one thing very clear. This ugly thing was about to swallow her alive. Now it was already too late to evade. Su Luo subconsciously tossed the source stones in her space into that 8-tentacled hobgoblin's mouth. Su Luo thought that since she couldn't evade it, then she must try to block that 8-tentacled strange water creature's mouth. As long as its mouth was blocked, then she would be relatively safe. Just now, under such an urgent situation, if it was changed to an average person, that person's hands and feet would have already gone soft. If they didn't faint, they would have been scared silly. But Su Luo maintained a calm and composed manner, and even used such an excellent move. The 8-tentacled strange water creature never expected that, wanting to swallow a person, but when it returned to its senses, it discovered that its mouth was full of large stones. Moreover, the fangs it was most proud of was smashed until it bled. While the 8-tentacled strange water creature was distracted, Su Luo had already retreated far, far away. She stood outside of the attack range of the 8-tentacled strange water creature. Su Luo had already calculated the attack range of the 8-tentacled strange water creature. She knew the 8-tentacled hobgoblin didn't like to show up on dry land, but she still underestimated its tentacles. Now the 8-tentacled hobgoblin was extremely angry, and the tentacles extended 30 meters, suddenly shooting out. It directly encircled towards Su Luo's waist. The long tentacles came with a strong momentum, making it too late for people to avoid. Really powerful 8-tentacled strange water creature. Su Luo cried out in alarm. If she didn't guess wrong, before, that thing in the bottom of the river that always gave her a sense of danger must be this 8-tentacled strange water creature. Chapter 1750. So painful, don't want to live. 1. In the blink of an eye, Su Luo had already started to fight with the 8-tentacled strange water creature. But when she started to move, she discovered that the situation wasn't good. Because the 8-tentacled strange water creature's strength wasn't weaker than Dongfang Xian's. After one attack, Su Luo's figure quickly retreated back. Not only didn't the 8-tentacled strange water creature retreat, instead, it even aggressively rushed forward. Its thick and long tentacle fiercely wrapped toward Su Luo's waist. Its speed was very fast. Before Su Luo could react, its tentacle had already wrapped around Su Luo's waist. Afterwards, one only saw its long tentacle move slightly, and Su Luo's entire body was bound tightly. Immediately after, the tentacle pulled Su Luo, who was bound up like a cocoon, to in front of the 8-tentacled strange water creature. Su Luo didn't have any strength to resist. The saliva at the 8-tentacled strange water creature's mouth dripped out non-stop. That saliva had a stinky smell that made people want to vomit. Seeing this, Su Luo almost threw up. But now, her body was bound into a statue. She had no control over her own body. 8-tentacled strange water creature pulled the wrapped-up Su Luo to in front of its wide bloody mouth. Its deeply cold eyes stared at Su Luo, eyes flashing with an apathetic and mocking sneer, as if to say, see where you can run to. In the end, you still couldn't escape from the palm of my hand, right? At this moment, Dongfang Xian and Elder Ancestor Mo's fight was at its most intense phase. By chance he saw this situation, and his heart immediately rejoiced. Quickly eat, quickly eat, quickly eat. Dongfang Xian eagerly cheered on the 8-tentacled strange water creature in his heart. If the 8-tentacled strange water creature ate Su Luo, then he would definitely reward this strange water creature's hard labor. Watching just as the 8-tentacled strange water creature was about to deliver the tightly bound Su Luo, who was without any strength to resist, into its mouth at this moment, a little fox with sparkling, translucent snow-white fur appeared on Su Luo's shoulder. One only saw it arrogantly howl at the 8-tentacled strange water creature. The 9-tailed spirit fox was best at transform into sheep technique. Ever since using this technique last time in the 9 different palace halls, its strength hadn't been restored. Now in the critical moment when Su Luo was between life and death, it finally could use this technique. Although the 8-tentacled strange water creature's strength was a lot greater than the little 9-tailed spirit fox, but the little 9-tailed spirit fox's transform into sheep technique could be used on higher ranks. Of course, the stronger the opponent, the shorter the time the transform into sheep technique would last. While the 8-tentacled strange water creature stared blankly, it suddenly discovered that its body started to change. Its originally large, ugly and fiend-like body, in an instant, changed into a little sheep that continuously cried out "Bah!" This kind of gap was too big, to the extent that the 8-tentacled strange water creature couldn't react. It looked at itself in stupefaction. One only heard a pop sound, and the 8-tentacled strange water creature that was changed into a little sheep sank into the dark lake. Its whole body was soaked, the white-colored fur was stuck to its skin, making it look extremely bedraggled. But what about Su Luo? Just when the little 9-tailed spirit fox was howling, Su Luo had guessed it was going to use transform into sheep technique. Therefore, she had already made preparations. Just when the 8-tentacled strange water creature released its grip, the Chungying sword in Su Luo's hand suddenly shot towards that little sheep's throat. Opportunity only knocks once. Want to inflict heavy damage to the 8-tentacled strange water creature, Su Luo only had this tight opportunity. Sure enough, before the 8-tentacled strange water creature had realized, it was transformed into a little sheep, and had already been attacked by Su Luo. The Chungying sword was very ruthless and accurate, giving off bright light. The 8-tentacled strange water creature was worthy of being at the summit of commander rank. Although it had changed into a little sheep, its perception of danger was still very strong. Chapter 1751. So painful, don't want to live. 2. Just when Chungying's sword was about to pierce its throat, its figure subconsciously avoided it. Although Chungying's sword didn't pierce its throat, it cut away a little less than half of its head. Immediately, blood rushed out. The dark green lake surface was suddenly dyed red by the scarlet blood. Circles after circles of blood floated onto the lake's surface. After this attack, Su Luo's figure quickly sped along, backing away. At this moment, her thoughts were complicated. Didn't kill the 8-tentacled strange water creature in one move. Then, what awaited her was the opponent's crazed retaliation. But Su Luo didn't come up completely empty. At least she inflicted heavy damage on the opponent. At this moment, the transform into sheep technique had reached its time limit. One only heard a wrathful howl, and the very small sheep dyed in blood, in the blink of an eye, had changed into that huge and ugly 8-tentacled strange water creature. Now a huge piece was cut off from the strange water creature's head, to the extent that even one of its eye was cut off. Blood flowed down the cheek, drop by drop mixing together with that stinky saliva. That eerie eye stared fixedly at Su Luo, really horrifying people. Su Luo increased her strides and sped away, not daring to stop. But how could the 8-tentacled strange water creature so easily let Su Luo go? One only saw its figure pounce madly toward Su Luo, fast as lightning. Su Luo felt a cold chill on her back. She sensed danger approaching, and as a result, subconsciously looked back only this one glance, and her heart felt chilled. Wasn't it said that the 8-tentacled strange water creature couldn't leave the dark lake? Then what's up with this 8-tentacled strange water creature that flew up like a dragon? That speed was so fast that Su Luo had the urge to cry. Just at this moment, a long tentacle very quickly attacked towards Su Luo's pair of feet. This time, the 8-tentacled strange water creature chose Su Luo's feet rather than her waist. The variant acacia tree rushed out, the thick vine giving off a golden light grabbed towards that thick tentacle. Momentarily, a tentacle, a green vine, met and intertwined, starting an intense fight. Su Luo didn't stop. In a flying manner, she rushed forward. As long as she ran out of the 8-tentacled strange water creature's attack range, she would be safe. But the strength difference between the variant acacia tree and the 8-tentacled strange water creature was too great. Therefore, in less than a few moves, The vine that the variant acacia tree was so proud of was fractured into countless pieces about the size of an inch. In the end, it turned into a golden powder that disappeared into the air. Su Luo knew that that was only one vine from the variant acacia tree. Its core was still being nourished in her space. So this fight didn't affect its life at all. But wanting to once again condense out a golden vine, it must restore its strength to the original state. Afraid it would need a lot of time. Just at this moment, the 8-tentacled strange water creature's tentacle had already appeared behind Su Luo. This time, Su Luo really had no way of avoiding it. All of a sudden, the 8-tentacled strange water creature's tentacle became longer, extending another 3 meters in an instant. Like this, how could Su Luo escape? One only saw the tentacle tightly bind around Su Luo's feet. Before Su Luo could react, it suspended Su Luo's body high in the air. The pitiful Su Luo became a captive just like this. This time, the 8-tentacled strange water creature really was extremely infuriated, so it showed no quarter. Suddenly, a barbed tip grew on the originally smooth tentacle. The barbed tip was like a slender needle, giving off a deep cold light. Chapter 1752. So painful, don't want to live. 3. Every hair like needle stabbed into Su Luo's foot. It was so painful that Su Luo sucked in a breath of cold air. If it was only the hair like needles, then fine, but the problem was that every needle hair had a barbed tip. Once it entered a person's body, want to quickly pull it out, it would so painful that you might want to just die. In addition to this, the 8-tentacled strange water creatures I had a trace of killing intent. That I had an incomparably sinister expression. The tentacle suddenly gave a toss, and Su Luo's figure appeared in front of the 8-tentacled strange water creature. Now all at once, 8 tentacles extended out from the 8-tentacled strange water creature. They were very thick and powerful. All 8 tentacles had barbed tips. In an instant, they all engulfed toward Su Luo's body, firmly wrapping her inside. This time, Su Luo was bound tightly from head to toe. Her body couldn't move a bit. Moreover, those densely packed fine hair needles entered Su Luo's body. Su Luo's willpower against pain was very strong, but under these kind of circumstances, one could see her face turn pale from the pain. Cold sweat poured down like raindrops. Her whole body couldn't stop convulsing because of the pain, struggling and twisting. Really was very painful. Su Luo bit down with a death grip on her teeth, her whole body shuddering nonstop because of the pain. Such a ruthless 8-tentacled strange water creature. It was trying to kill her with pain. Now Su Luo's whole body was covered in blood. Although every wound was very fine, but because there were numerous wounds, so the blood that seeped out merged together. Just like now, her light-colored clothing was full of specks of red that were bloodstains. It was a shocking sight. In fact, right now Su Luo was also very miserable. She almost fainted from the pain. If no one came to save her, Su Luo would definitely die from too much pain and blood loss. But who could save her now? The variant acacia tree now couldn't save itself, let alone others. After the service from before, its cultivation had greatly decreased. It needed a lot of time before having all its strength restored. After the 9-tailed spirit fox used the transform into sheep technique, wasting a majority of its spirit force. It was now laying next to the spirit spring in her space, gasping for breath with her tongue sticking out. Therefore Su Luo also couldn't count on it. As for the little stone. Not far, Dongfeng Xian's fight with the little stone was at an irresolvable stage. Now the two both found time to look toward Su Luo's situation. After one glance, the little stone's brows were tightly knotted. The little stone's brain was very good. After his careful and accurate calculation, wait until he defeated Dongfeng Xian. Su Luo would be thoroughly dead. If Su Luo was dead, then what was the meaning of winning this battle? Compared to the little stone's displeasure, Dongfeng Xian's mood was a lot happier. Right now he was so excited that he almost laughed out loud. Both feet being suspended, it was the first time Dongfeng Xian saw this kind of bedraggled Su Luo. This time, how could the loathsome girl not die? Dongfeng Xian wouldn't believe it. Even if Su Luo was a cat with 9 lives, this time, she certainly would die. Just when Dongfeng Xian was extremely pleased, suddenly, he felt his hand become relaxed. When he looked again, Elder Ancestor Mo's figure had already disappeared from in front of him. Dongfang Xian looked ahead, sure enough. Elder Ancestor Mo's figure had already flown to in front of the 8-tentacled strange water creature. Humph! A sinister and vicious light appeared in Dongfang Xian's eyes. Originally, he couldn't beat Elder Ancestor Mo, but now, all of his attention was on the 8-tentacled strange water creature. Didn't this give him the best opportunity to mount a sneak attack? The more Dongfang Xian thought about it, the prouder he was and the more brilliant his smile was. Chapter 1753. Self-detonate one's body 1. The 8-tentacled strange water creature stared at the little stone with a face full of hatred. The little stone also glared very fiercely at the opponent. Right now his heart was incomparably indignant. Heaven knows when he was at the summit of his strength. What did this 8-tentacled strange water creature count as? It wasn't even worthy of lifting his shoes. Now he was even helpless when killing such an insignificant ant, and would have to battle for a long time. Dongfang Xian's figure slowly approached Elder Ancestor Mo. Although Su Luo was in so much pain she was hovering between life and death, but she was still clear-headed. She saw Dongfang Xian noiselessly approach Elder Ancestor Mo's back. Immediately, alarm appeared in her eyes. The strength she saved bit by bit immediately exploded out. Careful! Su Luo loudly screamed. But now, even if the little stone wanted to avoid, it was already too late. The 8-tentacled strange water creature's wisdom was very high. When it saw Dongfang Xian mounting a sneak attack, a pleased expression flashed across its sinister face. One only saw it condense out its most powerful killing move, smashing it fiercely towards the little stone's face. This move, the 8-tentacled strange water creature used all its strength. The little stone used 70% of his strength to meet with the 8-tentacled strange water creature's move. The remaining 30% was used to deal with Dongfang Xian. In an instant, one only heard the sounds of collusion. Because of the friction in the air, one could hear sizzling sounds. The force in the surroundings was so great as to startle the heavens. Bang! The little stone faced the 8-tentacled strange water creature straight on. After both people met, they retreated. The 8-tentacled strange water creature's body rocked violently. The blood that had stopped flowing, with great difficulty, once again erupted out like spring water. It coughed out blood nonstop, very quickly. Its face and body were full of bloodstains. But it still had a death grip on Su Luo, refusing to let go. Compared to the 8-tentacled strange water creature, the little stone was a little better off. He only retreated back 3 steps before his figure became firm. Then at this time Dongfang Xian's attack was already close to his back. With an intense sound that broke through the sky, Dongfang Xian's palm strike suddenly slapped into the little stone's back. The little stone only saved 30% of his strength to defend, but Dongfang Xian used all his strength in this hit. How great was that force, one could well imagine. His back received the hit, and the little stone's figure swayed violently. Soon after, he continuously hit out with his palm. But the opponent he hit wasn't Dongfang Xian, rather, it was the 8-tentacled strange water creature. The 8-tentacled strange water creature thought the little stone would turn to chase down Dongfang Xian for revenge. But before it could return to its senses, the little stone's fist fell like the rain. A burst of pitter-patter sounds resounded nonstop. The 8-tentacled strange water creature originally was seriously injured. Before it could return to its senses, the little stone's burst of fists beat it into confusion. Moreover, this time, the little stone didn't reserve any strength. All of the little stone's strength was used on its body. One only heard a bang sound. The 8-tentacled strange water creature no longer had the strength to confine Su Luo, therefore Su Luo's figure fell to the ground, recovering her freedom. But just at this time, Dongfang Xian rushed up again. But he didn't even bother looking at Su Luo, directly hitting towards the little stone. Probably because he felt that as long as he killed the little stone, Su Luo would fall into his packet. With regards to Dongfang Xian's attack, the little stone once again couldn't pay attention to it. Just when Dongfang Xian's fist smashed down, the little stone's fist ruthlessly smashed towards the 8-tentacled strange water creature. Immediately, the dying 8-tentacled strange water creature died on the spot. Its eyes flipped out, dying with grievances in its expression. It looked extremely miserable. But the little stone wasn't any better off. His back endured Dongfangxian's formidable attacks. Chapter 1754. Self-detonate one's body. 2. Just when the 8-tentacled strange water creature collapsed, the little stone's body flew forward from being hit by Dongfangxian. In the end, he heavily fell to the ground. Dongfangxian looked at the dead 8-tentacled strange water creature and secretly said bad luck. Then he took large strides, step by step, approaching the little stone. The corner of his mouth had an arrogant sneer intrinsic to a winner. This time, the little stone was injured rather seriously, so it took him quite a while of struggling to stand up. Dongfangxian looked down from high above, the corner of his mouth hooking into a ridiculing sneer. Whether you are elder ancestor Mo or not, this time you must die. The little stone gasped for breath and coldly looked at him. Dongfangxian condensed out an ice sword in his hand. The ice sword gave off a cold light under the sunlight. While the little stone was climbing up, the cold long sword quietly stabbed out. One only heard a snapping sound. The little stone's right arm was directly cut off. Fortunately, the little stone was quick to avoid, otherwise, what was cut off would have been his head. Su Luo was so anxious, tears were about to fall. But now, she was laying on the ground, unable to move, let alone to say, "Go out and help." The long arm was cut off, giving off a clear sound when it fell to the ground. But the little stone didn't even frown. As if this arm had nothing to do with him. Dongfangxian succeeded in one move, and became more savage. One only saw his lips hook into a sinister smile. His eyes were full of mockery and a ridiculing smile. "Didn't expect you are only so-so. Then next year today will be the anniversary of your death." Dongfangxian waved his sword and thrust out. The little stone's brows were tightly knotted. The weak body was forced to fall back. But although he spared no effort, he still couldn't resist Dongfangxian's attack at his peak. A white light flashed by. A long wound was slashed on the little stone's chest. The blood rushed out, following the wound. In an instant, the jacket in front of his chest was dyed red from the blood. Even like this, the little stone didn't even frown. As if this long and deep wound didn't appear on his body. Dongfangxian looked at such a firm little stone, and the killing intent became more fervent in his eyes. Because he knew that if a person was very ruthless to others, it didn't matter. If a person was very ruthless to himself, that's what's called really ruthless. This kind of person was a very terrifying existence. The heart to retaliate would be even stronger. If he didn't kill the opponent, then what awaited him would be endless retaliation. Therefore, Dongfangxian made a decision, no matter what, he must kill this person in front of him. Because he gave Dongfangxian a deep restrained fear. Dongfangxian unfolded his left hand, and suddenly, another sword appeared. One sword in each of his left and right hand. The power was completely increased. The sword danced in Dongfangxian's hand. Each move had a destructive power that would be fatal. It relentlessly attacked towards the little stone. The little stone dodged to the left and avoided on the right, panting for breath, surrounded by perils all around. Several times he almost lost his life under Dongfangxian's hand. But he avoided it all by a hair's breadth. However, more and more traces of sword scars would appear on his body. It was also because the little stone could avoid it time and time again, so Dongfangxian's killing intent rose. His moves became increasingly powerful and bold. Suddenly, the little stone's foot stumbled. In one careless moment he fell to the ground. The fall made him cut a very sorry figure. At this moment his escape route, front, back, left and right, were all sealed off by Dongfangxian. As if the only road left was to die. Now see where you can ran to. Dongfangxian knew that even if wings were inserted into elder ancestor Mo, now he still couldn't escape. Chapter 1755. Self-detonate one's body. 3. From Dongfangxian's point of view, elder ancestor Mo had already reached a dead end. He didn't have any strength to resist. According to conventional thinking, if he still had strength, would he have allowed him to cut off one of his arms? The proud Dongfangxian didn't see the mocking sneer that flashed through the little stone's eyes. Just when Dongfangxian was about to use another killing move, at this moment, a misfortune occurred. One only saw Elder Ancestor Mo's body suddenly spring up like a bullet, exploding towards Dongfang Xian. A trace of surprise flashed through Dongfang Xian's eyes. Before he could put away his surprise, the little stone had already rushed to in front of him. One only heard a violent exploding sound that penetrated through the earth and sky. It was as if hundreds of kilograms of explosives were tied to Elder Ancestor Mo's body. And these explosives were all ignited at the same time, in a split second, detonating simultaneously. A countless number of flames soared to the sky, making a huge area densely black. Elder Ancestor Mo's body disintegrated from the explosion. A countless number of mincemeat flew and splattered in all directions. Dongfang Xian, who was closest to Elder Ancestor Mo, now had no time to attend to himself. Because Elder Ancestor Mo had rushed in front of him and deliberately exploded. How could he let Dongfang Xian escape? Dongfang Xian received an intense attack. He did his best to endure, but in the end, he still coughed out loud violently. Then with no sound, blood violently sprayed out. Spitting out several mouthfuls of blood was fine, but this time, Dongfang Xian almost spit out his internal organs. It could be seen how large of an impact was brought to his body when Elder Ancestor Mo chose to detonate his body. Dongfang Xian didn't have time to think carefully, let alone glance at Su Luo. Immediately, he sat down with legs crossed, both eyes closed tightly, quickly entering the restoring state. If he delayed even a bit, it would greatly affect his cultivation. At this moment, not far away, Su Luo stared stupefied at the carnage on the ground because of self-detonation. A burst of sadness couldn't help but rush up from the heart. But before it could brew into a sorrowful mood, a cold, strong and arrogant voice sounded in her mind. Cry, what cry? This daddy still haven't died yet. Although she was scolded, but this time, Su Luo was extremely happy. She excitedly talked with the little stone in her mind. It turned out you didn't die, ah? Since you didn't die, then speak a little earlier, ah? Why harm me to be so broken-hearted? The little stone unhappily humped twice. This young master is in a state of nothingness but a soul. Do you think self-exploding will have any effect on this young master? Even if everyone in the world died, this young master still won't die. The little stone patted his chest, full of self-confidence. Of course, that's ignoring his pale-as-paper face. This sentence that the little stone spoke wasn't wrong. He originally was in a nothingness state, and just a soul state. He really was a cockroach you couldn't kill, ah. Su Luo rolled her eyes at him in annoyance. Why did you explode your body, ah? If I don't self-explode, then I should wait for that person to kill me? The little stone unhappily glared at Su Luo. Why are you wasting words? This daddy used one flesh and blood body to pave the road for you. Why haven't you hurriedly run? You think that waiting until that person wakes up, you will still have your life? The little stone was her people, so he understood her. Before there was Variant Acacia Tree, Little Nine-Tailed Spirit Fox, and he who occupied Elder Ancestor Mo's body to help Su Luo. So she was able to avert disaster time and time again. Time and time again, she would break through being besieged. But now, everyone was either wounded or trying to restore cultivation. There wasn't anyone that could help Su Luo. So right now, the best method was for Su Luo to quickly run without delay. Taking advantage that Dongfang Xian's mind hadn't awoken from cultivation. How far she was able to run, then that was how far she should run. Chapter 1756. The World in the Bottom of the Lake, 1. Just now, because of your body's explosion, Dongfang Xian's injury certainly should be very serious. If I seize the opportunity to get rid of him now. Su Luo licked her chapped lips, eyes glistening brightly because of this thought. Let this idea go as soon as possible. The little stone wasn't a bit optimistic about Su Luo. Don't think that just because he is restoring his body, you should deliberately go up and court death. Let me tell you, as long as you make one move, Dongfang Xian can kill you in one move. Su Luo sucked in a long breath. Could it be she would be forever fated to flee for her life? Did her lifeline carry the fate of being cut short? Su Luo had no choice but to listen to the little stone's words. Because facts proved that every word he said was right. Just when Su Luo was about to flee, Dongfang Xian slowly opened his eyes. Shit. actually recovered so quickly. Immediately Su Luo was anxious. Dongfang Xian's deeply cold sinister gaze stared at Su Luo. The corner of his mouth suddenly hooked into a charming but evil smile, making people feel horror when looking at it. Su Luo's hair stood on ends because of being stared at, as her blood turned cold. Su Luo didn't even think and directly tossed the wooden board into the black lake. Then, she quickly rushed forward. Su Luo's ability to flee for her life had always been the most outstanding among her strong points. Dongfang Xian saw Su Luo step on the board speeding away, and his face that was covered with scars had a smile that became increasingly dark, cold and horrifying. Flee? Loathsome girl. You think you can flee from me? Dongfang Xian lifted up his long, thin finger, stroking the scars on his face that would be hard to remove. Hatred covered his entire face in an instant. Dongfang Xian didn't draw support from any outside object. One only saw his figure flashed. When one looked again, he had already appeared above the peaceful black lake. Up ahead, Su Luo staked her life to flee. Behind, Dongfang Xian pursued relentlessly, unwilling to let go. But the situation right now was very unfavorable to Su Luo. Because before, she was seriously wounded, although she used the best medicine. Moreover, her own blood had the effect of self-healing, but time was far from enough for her to recover completely. Therefore, while Su Luo was fleeing, she also had to endure the pain of being seriously injured. Dongfang Xian's recovery speed was very fast, although he hadn't recovered to his peak period at this moment. But to deal with the seriously injured Su Luo was more than enough. Up ahead, they had almost reached the opposite bank of the lake. Su Luo's heart rejoiced. All of a sudden, at this moment, Dongfang Xian's figure appeared in front of Su Luo. Su Luo abruptly came to a halt. If she didn't stop, she would directly knock into Dongfang Xian's pair of longswords. Loathsome girl, what other trump cards do you have? Take it all out. Dongfang Xian stood above the peaceful black lake. His gaze was cold and hidden as he stared at Su Luo. His eyes were full of a murderous aura, and he had an overbearing attitude. In the wake of Su Luo's trump cards appearing one after another, she had slipped away time and time again. Dongfang Xian really was afraid of Su Luo's cards. Su Luo's heart was anxious, but her expression still was tranquil as water. One only saw her smile faintly. Could it be you aren't afraid? I'm afraid? Ha ha ha. Dongfang Xian howled with laughter. His wide sleeves lifted up as he looked at Su Luo with frost. If you have the ability, take out and use all of your trump cards. What if I don't want to use it? Su Luo's smile was the same as before. Then just go die. A killing intent appeared in Dongfang Xian's eyes. One only saw his hands form a complicated seal. And very quickly, ice blades shot toward Su Luo from all directions. Because he was afraid Su Luo still had some trump cards, so this time, Dongfang Xian used all his strength. 100% of his power exploded out. Even if the little stone was to encounter this, it would be unbearable for him, let alone to say Su Luo. Su Luo watched as those ice blades surged over like the tide. She knew that if she didn't avoid it, then what awaited her was being stabbed and looking like a hedgehog. Chapter 1757. The World at the Bottom of the Lake, 2. Without time to think, one only saw Su Luo's figure shorten with a splash sound. Before the ice blades arrived, she jumped into the lake a step before. After the ice blades arrived, because they lost the target, these ice blades collided with each other. After the confused sounds of pitter-platter, they finally became faint white powder that scattered into the black lake. Dongfang Xian watched flabbergasted. Loathsome girl, actually jumped into the lake. This really is there is a road to heaven you don't walk and no doors to hell, but you insist on rushing in. Dongfang Xian's eyes had a radiant light. He could sense that there was a very strong organism that was living inside the lake. And this kind of formidable existence zealously guarded their domain, repelling all external people. Su Luo so casually rushing in was absolutely going to die. Dongfang Xian stood in midair, looking at the tranquil surface of the lake. His eyes were half narrowed. He was considering if he should follow after Su Luo and jump into this black lake. After considering for a long time, he still decided to give up going in, because he felt that he really didn't have the need to take such a huge risk. although Dongfang Xian was certain there was a very formidable aura inside. He was also certain that after Su Luo jumped into the Black Lake, her life would be in danger. However, he didn't leave. Rather, he sat cross-legged on the lake shore. While silently healing his internal injuries, he also observed the situation. As long as Su Luo came out, he wouldn't let her have another slight chance to escape. Just when Dongfang Xian was setting up this inescapable net, Su Luo was also not idle at the bottom of the lake. After Su Luo jumped into the Black Lake, her entire person entered a dizzy state. So sleepy as if she would fall asleep forever. But at this time, the little stone gave an intense sharp cry in Su Luo's head. This cry immediately removed Su Luo from her disoriented state. After Su Luo returned to her senses, a burst of cold sweat appeared on her back. Because now that Su Luo had finally sank into the bottom of the lake, she could clearly see those fishes and all kinds of creatures that were unconscious in the surroundings. All around, there was a deathly stillness and unusual quiet. Su Luo's heart shivered. If she didn't have the little stone's help, she would certainly have fallen asleep, to the extent that she would never wake up. Su Luo hurriedly stuffed a clearing mind pill into her mouth. This was the emperor-ranked clearing mind pill that Grandmaster Rong Yun had specifically refined for Su Luo. Right now, Su Luo had no choice but to admire beautiful teacher's acute foresight. Otherwise, she would certainly end up terribly. After her mind became clear-headed, Su Luo began to size up her surroundings. But around her, besides those motionless creatures, actually didn't have any aura that was moving about. In the end, what is this place? Su Luo lifted her head to look, but at this time, she simply couldn't see clearly what's above her head. She only felt that the surroundings was an area that was pitch black, didn't seem to be like the bottom of a lake. Secret room. The little stone rolled his eyes in annoyance at Su Luo. Then under Su Luo's expectant gaze, he helplessly told her that during her unconsciousness, she was carried by the flow of the water into this cave formed from lava. What a big lava cave. Don't know how it was formed. Su Luo looked at this massive lava cave, and couldn't help but gasp in surprise. Who would have known that there was another universe under the lake? The little stone looked at this cave. Afterwards, his brows were tightly knotted. What? Could it be you have some clues? Seeing that the little stone had a rare frown, Su Luo smilingly asked. She originally said the words casually, but outside of her expectations, the little stone actually replied. A fist smashed it out. How else could it have formed? The little stone slanted a faint glance at Su Luo, and said this without thinking. Chapter 1758. The World in the Bottom of the Lake 3? You really know? Su Luo looked at him in surprise. Whose fist is so strong? Actually with one hit made such a huge lava cave? The little stone said faintly. If I didn't guess wrongly, it ought to be a battle god puppet. But even if I said battle god puppet, you probably don't have any concept of what it is. Because this kind of battle god puppet has already disappeared from the world. Really? Su Luo felt a slight regret. You really shouldn't feel regret. If a battle god puppet still remained here, then we both would die for certain. Little Stone unhappily slanted Su Luo a glance. A battle god puppet's territorial sense is very intense. Moreover, its battle sense is very strong. Really? Su Luo whispered this the second time. Just when the two were murmuring, suddenly, not far away came the sound of footsteps. What things? Su Luo's pair of eyes was innocent and bewildered. Who knew that at this time, the little stone shouted at Su Luo. Shut up. Su Luo stared blankly from being shouted at. She foolishly stared at the little stone. But right now, the little stone was more stirred up than her. Don't speak. What happened? Su Luo used her mind to carefully have a conversation with the little stone. Really was because the little stone's attitude's change was too great. In Su Luo's impression, the little stone hadn't ever been this careful. Snap, snap. This sound was becoming clearer and clearer. The little stone's complexion immediately became abnormally pale. What's wrong? Su Luo's mood was also affected by his, and she couldn't help but start to be nervous. You are toast. The little stone very fiercely roared at Su Luo in a low voice. What kind of luck do you have? Actually dare to boast you have good luck? on the street, randomly pulling over a person, and their luck is 100 times better than yours. The little stone's anger was vigorous. But Su Luo was still puzzled. Even up till now, she still didn't know what happened. In the end, what was the little stone angry about? In the wake of the snapping sound coming closer and closer, the little stone finally said, "If I didn't guess wrongly, this sound ought to be given off by the battle god puppet." "You," Su Luo was jolted. "Battle god puppet? Didn't you say that battle god puppets no longer exist in this world?" This was something he had just said. It was still hot. How long had it been? Immediately having your face slapped. The little stone arrogantly glared at Su Luo. "Here is secret roaming dragon territory and not the mainland. Moreover, how would I have known that after so many years, this battle god puppet hasn't been scrapped? Then you say, what ought we do now?" Su Luo spread out her hands, able to smash out such a large lava cave with one hit of its fist. How strong must that strength be? Afraid it would be stronger than even Dongfang Xian. Why are you still staring blankly? Quickly run. The little stone hurriedly urged Su Luo. Su Luo's face was full of awkwardness, because the only road to continue living was on the lake's surface. But on the lake's surface, Dongfang Xian surely had set up a trap, waiting for her to take the bait. If she went up, wasn't this walking directly into the trap? Just when Su Luo was hesitating, the little stone's sharp voice sounded in her mind. Battle god puppet's awareness of its territory is very sharp. Moreover, its strength can only be stronger than Dongfang Xian and not weaker. What do you choose? Strength that was stronger than Dongfang Xian? Su Luo was so depressed that she almost spit out blood. Now, arranged in front of Su Luo was to choose a road with the chance of dying 9 times out of 10. Let's run. Su Luo helplessly turned around and hurriedly ran away. Chapter 1759, Battle God Puppet, 1. While Su Luo was running, she also turned her head back to look. When she saw that Battle God Puppet with only skeleton remaining, her eyes almost dropped out from staring. She only saw that this Battle God Puppet was about 3 meters tall. Its whole body was slim without any flesh. It only had a white-colored bone frame to create a human figure. Although the frame appeared simple, but it gave people a terrifying feeling. At least, only having glanced at it once, Su Luo felt all her hairs stand on ends. That battle god puppet seemed to have awareness. When Su Luo's head turned to look at him, it lifted its pair of eyes that was blood red, like a dense blood fog, misty and reeking of blood. Just one glance made Su Luo dizzy. Not only that, this battle god puppet actually gave a burst of strange laughter towards Su Luo. That chuckle made all the hair on Su Luo's body stand up straight. Su Luo didn't have time to think more. She immediately turned and ran upwards toward the surface. Compared to Dongfang Xian, this battle god puppet was more terrifying. At least when faced with Dongfang Xian, Su Luo could use schemes and intelligence. But faced with this extremely powerful strong buff guy, puppet in front of her that only spoke with its fist, Su Luo was simply powerless. Before, those injuries Su Luo received had gradually healed. Now her movements weren't affected by those injuries at all. Very quickly, she arrived at the surface of the lake. Behind, she had the battle god puppet pursuing, unwilling to let go. On the lake shore, there was Dongfang Xian staring fixedly waiting. This time, what she must do was to take her time to make a decision. But Su Luo didn't have this time. Su Luo didn't have time to think. Her body suddenly soared out of the black lake. Dongfang Xian had already sensed this slight fluctuations. He was very familiar with Su Luo's aura. So he immediately guessed it was Su Luo. A strong killing move hacked ruthlessly towards Su Luo's forehead. But Dongfang Xian still underestimated Su Luo. Right now, almost all of Su Luo's injuries were completely healed. At a time of life and death, Su Luo once again soared to the fastest speed. Therefore, when Dongfang Xian released this killing move, Su Luo's body twisted and directly leaned to the right. Then did Dongfang Xian's move go to waste? It really didn't. Not only wasn't this killing move by Dongfang Xian wasted, moreover, it was of great use. It could be said it impacted the most critical juncture that would affect the success or failure of the battle situation in the future. Su Luo avoided it, But behind Su Luo there was still a pitiful battle god puppet, okay? Just after Su Luo avoided it, and before Dongfang Xian's killing move landed, the battle god puppet had foolishly popped out. One only heard a loud clang sound. This killing move directly landed on the battle god puppet's forehead. Afterwards, greenish smoke emerged from its forehead. Dongfang Xian was also struck dumb seeing this. He was in disbelief, looking at that thing whose head had just emerged and was smashed back into the water. In fact, because that killing move exploded too fast, Dongfang Xian simply didn't have time to see clearly what that thing was. Su Luo's head turned back, and discovered that the battle god puppet was knocked unconscious by just one move from Dongfang Xian. She couldn't help but to be flabbergasted. Isn't the battle god puppet a bit too weak? Su Luo's pair of eyes blinked. If she had known earlier that the battle god puppet would collapse from one blow, why would she have had to run so hurriedly? Since it was just one face-to-face, and it was slapped back into the bottom of the lake. But at this time, the little stone also looked at the ripple on the black lake's surface with disbelief. Clearly, that puppet gave him a sense that it was very strong, okay? The little stone's expression darkened then lightened in indeterminate manner. Suddenly, a light flashed through the little stone's eyes. Chapter 1760, Battle God Puppet, 2, Quickly Go Back. The little stone loudly shouted at Su Luo. This tone was urgent and clear, like a clap of thunder exploding in Su Luo's mind. She almost jumped from being startled. Su Luo had never seen the little stone this excited. Momentarily, she couldn't react. The little stone urged in an anxious tone. Quickly return to the bottom. If I didn't guess wrongly, whether we can kill Dongfang Xian or not will depend on this move. Actually so serious? Although Su Luo couldn't understand what the little stone had in his sleeves, but she still did what the little stone told her to do. But at this time, before Su Luo could jump into the Black Lake, Dongfang Xian's attack that rushed over with strong momentum had arrived. This time, it seemed as if Dongfang Xian was testing his own moves. He sent the exact strike from just now and it smashed towards Su Luo's forehead. A clang noise resounded. Su Luo originally wanted to jump into the Black Lake. This move by Dongfang Xian was also forcing her into the Black Lake. Wasn't it just perfect? As a result, Su Luo beat him at his own game and sunk into the bottom of the Black Lake. But it happening like this again made Dongfang Xian flabbergasted. Was this move really so powerful and astonishing? Being released, it eliminated such a powerful existence. Then again, it eliminated Su Luo? If you must know, Su Luo was like a cockroach he couldn't kill. Time after time, she would tenaciously rise up. Dongfang Xian looked foolishly at his own pair of hands, the light in his eyes becoming increasingly hot. Su Luo jumped into the Black Lake because of the little stone's command. Afterwards, she rushed forward in the direction the little stone pointed to. Seeing the little stone's tense little face and anxious expression, Su Luo couldn't help but teasingly say, "So there are times that you can also get excited, ah?" The little stone unhappily rolled his eyes at Su Luo and arrogantly curled his lips. If it weren't for the fact that the contractor is too weak, how could I, this grandpa, take a fancy to such a weak ant-like existence? Su Luo sked twice. Up ahead, they would arrive at the place he pointed to very soon. A white skeleton frame forming a human figure puppet laid quietly at the bottom of the lake. One only saw its pair of eyes opened into a circle, as if dying with remaining grievances. Go over. Seeing Su Luo's footsteps had stopped, the little stone couldn't help but urge urgently. You are certain there is no problem? Certain it wouldn't jump up? Su Luo once again hesitated. Could it be you didn't discover that all the spirit force in its body had been consumed? Have you ever seen a battle god puppet who had consumed all their spirit force can jump up? The little stone grunted in displeasure. Still won't quickly go up. I am telling you, wait until Dongfang Xian clearly thinks through the secret within and chase after you. You will die for certain. What are you talking about? Su Luo was muddled by the little stone's jumping around logic. The little stone used the expression of looking at a fool to look at Su Luo. He stopped short of cursing her for being an idiot. Battle God Puppet has a very distinct trait. If the human race wants it to be a hired thug, then they must feed it enough food. Who feeds it will become its master. The little stone told her the secret. If it weren't for the little stone being a spirit that had lived for countless years, there really would be very few people who knew the battle god puppet's secret. Su Luo started to understand it somewhat. That is to say, if I go feed it now, then this battle god puppet would listen to me? Still haven't become extremely stupid. The little stone humphed twice. But Su Luo frowned and looked at the battle god puppet laying in the bottom of the lake motionless with some doubt. She stroked her chin, her doubtful gaze shooting towards the little stone. So easily slapped down by Dongfang Xian, you really think it's very strong? Chapter 1761, Battle God Puppet 3. The little stone glared at Su Luo as if she had failed to live up to expectations. That's because you don't know how formidable the battle god puppets were at their summit. Thus you would say something like this. As long as you feed it sufficient spirit force, I can guarantee 10 Dongfang Xian is not enough for it to destroy. But the little stone didn't say how much spirit force was required to feed it until it was full. In short, it wasn't something Su Luo could afford to raise now. But Su Luo didn't know the little stone kept back some information he didn't say. She listened to the little stone's words and immediately became excited. 10 Dongfang Xian wasn't enough for it to destroy? Then how strong must it be? Su Luo's pair of eyes immediately shone with brilliant rays of light. All of a sudden, a thought flashed by, and immediately after, her eyes lit up. With a certain expression, she said to the little stone, "You knew since earlier that the battle god puppet's spirit force was about to be depleted, so forced me to run in front of it? Deliberately made Dongfang Xian move against it, right? Otherwise, how could it be such a coincidence? Dongfang Xian's palm strike just so happened to hit the battle god puppet's forehead? It may be assumed these were the result from the little stone's accurate calculations. The little stone had an appearance of that the child was teachable. Now you finally understand after much pondering." Su Luo was just about to tease him, but suddenly the little stone's expression changed. He urgently said to Su Luo, "Quickly, hurry and toss some food to the battle god puppet. Dongfang Xian is coming over." The battle god puppet was a model of one loyal to whoever fed it. When it had no food, whoever gave it food, then that person was its master. Dongfang Xian was able to chase over. Very clearly, he had already guessed this was a battle god puppet. He must have thought of the secret within this. Therefore, the situation immediately became urgent. The battle god puppet was such a difficult to find in the world super hired thug. How could Dongfang Xian give up on it? If she let Dongfang Xian collect away the battle god puppet, then in the secret roaming dragon territory, the people on Su Luo's side would absolutely be completely massacred by him. Now was not the problem of Su Luo's safety alone, rather, it was the safety and life of the four of them. What should I feed him? Su Luo looked at the little stone impatiently. Anything that has spirit force, for example, purple-colored crystal stone, black-colored crystal stone. The little stone looked at that battle god puppet laying there motionlessly. In a while, wait until Su Luo finds out the amount of food this glutton can eat. 3 lines appeared on his forehead. In passing, Su Luo grabbed several crystal stones that were laying around in her space and put it by the battle god puppet's mouth. Su Luo was just investigating her spirit knowledge on how to feed it. When who would have imagined, the purple crystal stone had just touched its lips when it became nothing. Su Luo's eyes went straight from watching this. But after feeding it 5 pieces of purple-colored crystal stones, Su Luo discovered it was like throwing stones into a sea. There wasn't a bit of response. Because this battle god puppet is still laying there motionless with eyes open, with no aura of life on its body. Su Luo was very puzzled, and turned to look at the little stone. The little stone wanted to say something, then turned his head arrogantly away. In a very fierce tone he said, "Why are you looking at me like this? It's you who fed it too little, okay?" Su Luo suddenly felt speechless. Even if she fed too little, at least it should give her a reaction, right? But this battle god puppet didn't even react. This made her heart very uncertain. The little stone, seeing Su Luo didn't move, then indifferently added another sentence. "Dongfang Xian is about to come." Su Luo suddenly had no choice. She directly moved out the source stone she got from Dongfang Xian. Chapter 1762, Battle God Puppet 4. If you must know, this huge source stone contained more than 100 pieces of purple-colored crystal stones. Now Su Luo didn't have time to attend to much, so she directly divided this source stone into two, revealing the sparkling, bright purple rays of light from inside. When Su Luo placed the huge source stone at the corner of the Battle God Puppet's mouth, very quickly, that source stone disappeared without a trace. Su Luo unblinkingly stared at the Battle God Puppet, afraid of missing any traces of news on its face. Now the situation had already reached such a dangerous degree. Dongfang Xian was about to kill over. The Battle God Puppet contained all of Su Luo's hope. If some mishap occurred now, then what would get snapped was Su Luo's life. But the Battle God Puppet still remained deathly still, didn't give any reaction to Su Luo. Just at this moment, Dongfang Xian's figure appeared in front of Su Luo. Dongfang Xian originally didn't think that what he hit was a Battle God Puppet, until Su Luo once again returned to the bottom of the lake. He then had a trace of suspicion. As a result, he pursued over. Now, when he saw that creature laying there peacefully, his eyes almost went vertical. He saw Su Luo, but right now, the most important thing in his heart wasn't to kill Su Luo, but rather to take out all the things he had that contained spirit force. His body flashed and rushed to in front of the Battle God Puppet. When he was full of hope as he placed the crystal stones he gathered at the side of the Battle God Puppet's mouth this time, the Battle God Puppet didn't even absorb it. Regardless of how respectfully Dongfang Xian offered the purple-colored crystal stone with both hands, standing there so awkwardly with waist bent. After a long time, Dongfang Xian saw that the Battle God Puppet was still indifferent, and the rage in his eyes became more fervent. His head slanted to glare at Su Luo on the side who he ignored before. His expression was savage as if he wanted to eat her. "Did you feed it something?" Su Luo knew, this time as long as she admitted it, she would immediately meet with a deadly blow. But if she said no, Su Luo lifted her eyes to look at the Battle God Puppet. At this moment, don't know which muscle was wrong with the Battle God Puppet, as it suddenly sat up with a whoosh sound. Su Luo looked in surprise at the Battle God Puppet, that sat up with a bewildered expression. Dongfang Xian also suspiciously looked at that Battle God Puppet in puzzlement. At this moment, he still wasn't certain if Su Luo was suddenly controlling the Battle God Puppet. One only saw the Battle God Puppet's stiff neck slowly turn. That pair of large bell-like eyes were exploring and scanning in a straight line. When it saw Su Luo, its huge face suddenly laughed, revealing some teeth. An expression that was very foolish and very innocent. Su Luo was somewhat scared after being looked by it. Before Su Luo could react, the Battle God Puppet's gaze turned once again. This time, accurately and without mistake fixing on Dongfang Xian's body. Dongfang Xian felt his blood run cold from being stared by it. Because the Battle God Puppet's eyes were full of a bloody mist, really was very terrifying. Afterwards, the Battle God Puppet slowly stood up. Its emaciated skeleton gave off creaking sounds. Step by step, it walked towards Dongfang Xian. At this time, Dongfang Xian was somewhat apprehensive. He subconsciously retreated back. The Battle God Puppet pressured closer, step by step. Dongfang Xian retreated again and again, until he couldn't retreat anymore. The Battle God Puppet suddenly opened its mouth and gave off a sinister and strange laugh. That laugh would horrify people. At this time, Dongfang Xian had already realized, this Battle God Puppet was already under Su Luo's control. He was very vexed in his heart, because the Battle God Puppet gave him a formidable, hard-to-defeat, powerful feeling. Chapter 1763, Hair-Raising 1. The Battle God Puppet approached him step by step, in the end, standing firmly in front of him. Before waiting for the Battle God Puppet to make a move, Dongfang Xian had already taken the initiative to strike first. Because he knew, if he waited for the Battle God Puppet to move first, then his chances of winning would be quite small. Dongfang Xian's ice blade hacked over, one after another. These ice blades that contained endless attack and destructive power, had a huge restrictive force on Su Luo. However, what shocked him was, these ice blades were completely useless against the Battle God Puppet. Looking on as the ice blades flew over from all directions, the Battle God Puppet just stood there with its back straight, a motionless appearance. When the ice blades flew to his body, only a burst of pitter-patter of things hitting could be heard. When she looked again, those ice blades had become powder and floated to the ground. Not even a trace of scars was left on the battle god puppet's body. This was sufficient to prove Dongfang Xian's strongest attack wasn't able to harm the battle god puppet, even a bit. That's also to say, the battle god puppet was immune to Dongfang Xian's attack. The battle god puppet just stood there, a terrifying smile hanging at the corner of its eyes and mouth. The chill in Dongfang Xian's herd became even stronger. The restraining fear he had towards the battle god became even deeper. Dongfang Xian had continuously attacked nonstop, constantly releasing his biggest and most prideful moves. But even his strongest killing move still couldn't move the battle god puppet a tiny bit. It was like a pile of wood standing there, letting Dongfang Xian's attack land on its body. Precisely because the difference between the two sides was too large, so the battle god puppet's strength steadily suppressed Dongfang Xian. The more Dongfang Xian struck, the more fearful he became. Until the end, his heart had already sunk to the bottom. While Su Luo, who was watching this battle scene on the side, her mood was suddenly extremely good. The ancient people said correctly, fortunes rise and fall. Now it's finally her turn. Before, she was at the end of her rope from being chased by Dongfang Xian. Now, having a battle god puppet, see how Dongfang Xian can still maintain his arrogance. Su Luo had both hands at her hips as she stood on the side happily, grinning as she watched the play that could make her feel great. Dongfang Xian knew the chances of him winning this battle today would be very low. With the battle god puppet present, if he continued to fight, don't even mention killing Su Luo, he wouldn't even be able to keep his own life. Thinking of this, Dongfang Xian's heart had already made a decision from the top 36 strategies. Su Luo looked at Dongfang Xian's eyes which were twirling around. In a flash, she thought of what he was thinking. As a result, she loudly instructed the battle god puppet that was letting itself be beaten. Quickly strike, don't let him run. The battle god puppet was one that followed whoever fed it. And Su Luo was the latest master he recognized. As a result, he very obediently swung his fist, ruthlessly smashing towards Dongfang Xian. Dongfang Xian, seeing the situation was wrong, immediately turned to run away. The battle god puppets had already had a mission. How could it let him run? One only saw its fist, fast as lightning as if carrying 10,000 caddies in weight with the sounds of thunder, ruthlessly smashing towards Dongfang Xian's chest. Dongfang Xian wanted to avoid it, but he still underestimated the battle god puppet's strength. Before Dongfang Xian could make the move to avoid, the fist had already flown to his chest area. One only heard a loud bang sound. With a crashing sound, Dongfang Xian's body was like a broken kite, flying backwards. The fist from the battle god puppet seemed to contain all the strength between heaven and earth. Dongfang Xian simply could not bear it. Chapter 1764. Hair-raising 2 in mid-air, Dongfang Xian sprayed out a mouthful of blood, dyeing the ground red. But Dongfang Xian was ruthless to others and even more ruthless to himself. Although he was seriously injured, he still spared no effort as his figure shrank down, using the strength from the battle god puppet's fist to quickly fly back. When Su Luo returned to her senses, she had already lost his figure in front of her eyes. Recalling the battle god puppet's strength, Su Luo wasn't worried. Only, she had a disdainful expression, as she humphed twice in ridicule. Want to run? See where you can run to. Then Su Luo turned, wanting to command the battle god puppet. However, before Su Luo could say anything, she saw the battle god puppet's huge figure, with a clang sound, sit down on the ground. Su Luo's heart immediately had an ominous feeling. As a result, she hurriedly ran to in front of the battle god puppet. But when Su Luo arrived, she just so happened to see the battle god puppet close its eyes with difficulty and sink into deep sleep. Su Luo hastily called it, but there was no response. Su Luo couldn't help but use her hand to push. Still no response. Su Luo had a sullen expression and helplessly asked the little stone, "What's going on?" The little stone scratched his head in embarrassment. In the end, he still stiffened his face and humphed in an unpleasant tone and manner. "What's going on? Haven't you already guessed it?" How could it be like this? Su Luo simply couldn't imagine it. So many purple-colored crystal stones, in exchange for one strike from his fist towards Dongfang Xian? Wasn't this a bit too expensive? Even if purple crystal stones were piled into a mountain, she still couldn't afford to raise it, okay? The little stone humphed twice. That could be considered a response. You knew since earlier? Although it was a question, but Su Luo's tone was very certain. I need to go into closed-door cultivation. If there isn't anything important, don't casually disturb me. The little stone especially arrogantly turned his face away. Then he quickly sat down cross-legged to start cultivating. Su Luo extended out a finger, but didn't know who she should poke. This simply almost angered her to death. So many crystal stones. So many crystal stones to exchange for one fist strike. Could she be more of a spendthrift? Su Luo scowled miserably, with a complicated expression as she stared at the battle god puppet that was in an unconscious state. Now what should she do? Feed it or not? Su Luo felt this was a very difficult decision. If she didn't feed it, then when Dongfang Xian searched over, based on Dongfang Xian's strength, he absolutely could steal the battle god puppet from her hands. You must know, the battle god puppet would follow whoever fed it, wouldn't be eternally loyal to her. If she fed it, Su Luo looked into her space, she suddenly had an urge to cry. Just when Su Luo was hesitating indecisively, outside, Dongfang Xian was also indecisive. Dongfang Xian quickly ran out. Just when he did his utmost to increase his speed to the max, he suddenly discovered that no one chased after him. Based on the enormous strength of the battle god puppet, and Su Luo's petty mind, how could they not chase over? This matter simply appeared strange. Dongfang Xian's brain spun very fast, very quickly. He analyzed the critical point of the matter. It couldn't be that the battle god puppet didn't have any spirit force, right? But in Dongfang Xian's impression, the battle god puppet only made one strike. How could it not have enough spirit force? Although the possibility was very small, but Dongfang Xian was very experienced in seeking riches among danger, so he stopped his footsteps and hid to listen attentively. However, after listening, he really did hear a bit of the truth. Just because the battle god puppet hadn't chased over after a long time. Therefore, Dongfang Xian became more and more suspicious. In the end, he straightforwardly turned and, walking quickly, went back inside. Chapter 1765, Hair-Raising 3. When Dongfang Xian entered, Su Luo was still tangled about whether to feed this lug or not. Su Luo gave the battle god puppet a name, calling it Lug. When Dongfang Xian came in, he saw Lug laying straight on the ground, while Su Luo was circling around it. Such a great opportunity. How could Dongfang Xian miss it? One only saw his foot lift as he fiercely kicked towards Su Luo's back. Sensing the strong wind and killing intent coming from her back, this time, Su Luo didn't dodge. She flipped around and sent a column of flame towards Dongfang Xian. The column of flame blocked Dongfang Xian's attack, but it only blocked it for a very short period of time. Because Dongfang Xian was envious of this battle god puppet, so he had used a fatal strike. Even though he was heavily injured, he still wasn't someone Su Luo could defeat. Su Luo was almost trampled as she was kicked to the side. Dongfang Xian repeatedly laughed evilly. In his arms were purple and black crystal stones that he had hoarded for a long time. His movement was extremely fast as he fed these to the battle god puppet. Su Luo's heart was anxious to death. If Dongfang Xian succeeded, wouldn't Lug become his personal thug? Then the lives of everyone in her group of 4 would be controlled in Dongfang Xian's palm, right? This absolutely wasn't something Su Luo wanted to see. As a result, in spite of the pain from her body, Su Luo threw herself over. But it was already too late. The opportunity had quietly disappeared when Su Luo hesitated. The crystal stones in Dongfang Xian's hand rapidly disappeared. From the side, this showed one thing, that Lug had swallowed up these things that contained spirit force. Just when Su Luo was anxious enough to rush up and fight to the death with Dongfang Xian, the little stone's voice faintly sounded in Su Luo's mind. Slow. The little stone said such a simple word. If I am any slower, then I'll be dead. Su Luo once again wanted to rush up. If you rush up, then that is what's called really dead. Don't you know the saying? leaving behind a green mountain. You won't have to worry, there won't be firewood to burn? Don't know what's called light at the end of the tunnel, this phrase? The little stone reasoned calmly. What do you mean? There were many questions in Su Luo's heart, but her mood had already calmed down. The mysteries of the heavens must not be revealed. The little stone started to keep her in suspense. Then, regardless of how Su Luo asked, the little stone was literally like a stone in the toilet, smelly and hard. No matter what, she couldn't get any answer out of him. Dongfang Xian saw the crystal stones in his hand being absorbed by the battle god puppet, and immediately he was so overjoyed that he almost danced. Although the battle god puppet still hadn't woken up, but Dongfang Xian already believed the battle god puppet was an item in his purse. On top of the fact that before, he saw Su Luo feed the battle god puppet, and it didn't immediately wake up, so he wasn't a bit anxious. His heart wasn't anxious, so he had idle time to deal with Su Luo. One only saw Dongfang Xian unhurriedly walk toward Su Luo. His footsteps were even, neither fast nor slow, as if he was strolling through the imperial court. So leisurely as if sitting around watching the flowers bloom and fall. His gaze had a trace of a mocking smile that wasn't a smile. His cold eyes cast sidelong glances at Su Luo. In his impression, at this time, Su Luo should be losing her head out of fear, or at least fly into a rage. But contrary to what he expected, Su Luo wasn't flustered nor flew into a rage. Rather, her expression was calm as water without a single ripple. Dongfang Xian didn't believe it, such a dramatic change. Even he wouldn't be able to remain calm, so how could Su Luo really be so unconcerned? Chapter 1766, Emperor-ranked blood-clotting pill, loathsome girl. Now what do you have to say? Dongfang Xian had both arms crossed over his chest, looking down arrogantly and unhurriedly as he said this to Su Luo. Now, Dongfang Xian gave off the heroic and bold feeling of being able to control the weather in the world. Su Luo slanted a cold glance at him but didn't speak. Although Su Luo didn't know what the little stone had up his sleeves, but she knew matters should take a turn for better, only that it wasn't time yet. So what she ought to do right now was to stall for time. Dongfang Xian saw Su Luo didn't reply, and the smile at the corner of his mouth became even deeper. Looks like heaven still looks after me. The final victory is still in my hand. What do you say? Really? The corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked into a ghost of a smile, with an unconcerned expression. You don't think so? Dongfang Xian pressed in step by step, his body bending down to face Su Luo. The two were very close to each other, Dongfang Xian's burning hot breath spraying on Su Luo's face. Su Luo was so furious in her heart that she was itching to rip Dongfang Xian into pieces. But she still didn't reveal it on her face and only smiled faintly. Whatever delusions you want to have, then have it. Why ask me? Dongfang Xian almost got internal injuries from being angered by Su Luo. Okay, since you, this loathsome girl, won't drink when asked and instead want to drink penalty, then don't blame me for being merciless. Dongfang Xian's long fingers pinched Su Luo's throat. His speed was very fast, so fast that Su Luo didn't have time to react before her body was confined and she couldn't move. Take out all those medicine. Before Dongfang Xian moved, he finally recalled a very important matter. He finally remembered that Su Luo had a batch of emperor-ranked blood-clotting pills. It was a miraculous drug that could save a dead person and grow meat on bones. Emperor-ranked blood-clotting pill? Su Luo coldly smiled. Her heart was very certain, so she deliberately stalled for time. Do you want your neck or the emperor-ranked blood-clotting pills? Dongfang Xian smiled sinisterly. That smile was strange and treacherous. Emperor-ranked blood-clotting pill. Su Luo smiled coldly. You're certain you want it? Take it all out. Dongfang Xian pressured tightly. Su Luo's sleeves flipped over. A bottle of emperor-ranked blood-clotting pills appeared in her hand. One only saw her smile faintly. Since you want it so much, then take it. Su Luo stuffed the emperor-ranked blood-clotting pills that were priceless treasures into Dongfang Xian's hand without the slightest hesitation. But because Su Luo stuffed it into his hand too straightforwardly, so when Dongfang Xian received it, his whole face was full of suspicion. He hesitated and was uncertain. His gloomy and cold gaze unblinkingly stared at Su Luo. Su Luo only smiled faintly. Now can you let go? Seeing Su Luo's calm and unhurried appearance, Dong Fengxian's expression became increasingly bad. His brows were wrinkled tightly as he stared fixedly at Su Luo and questioned in a cold tone. Is there some problem with these emperor-ranked blood-clotting pills? What possible problem could it have? Su Luo pretended to be puzzled. Since you don't like it, then give it back to me. Saying this, Su Luo stretched out her hand, wanting to snatch the emperor-ranked blood-clotting pills back. But the treasures that were already in hand, how could Dong Fengxian take it out? He avoided Su Luo's hand, then poured out a blood-clotting pill and stuffed it into Su Luo's mouth. You come try it. Not giving Su Luo a chance to speak, without explanation he stuffed the pill into Su Luo's mouth, forcing Su Luo to swallow the pill. Su Luo was choked until she coughed loudly. She resisted with great difficulty, but had no way out. She could only look on helplessly as the pill entered her throat. Dong Fengxian's eyes stared fixedly on Su Luo's expression, afraid of missing even a tiny bit of change. Su Luo sat down leaning against the wall, loudly gasping for breath. Her hair was in disarray, cutting an extremely sorry figure. Chapter 1767. Won't amount to a hill of beans. Dong Fengxian stared unwaveringly at Su Luo, looking at the expression on her face, afraid of missing a thread of detail. Su Luo leaned against the wall taking large breaths, but her face didn't change a bit. Time gradually passed and Su Luo's face still didn't change, and Dong Fengxian's worried heart also calmed down slowly. In the end, Dong Fengxian started to howl with laughter. Loathsome girl, looks like this bottle of medicine really is a good thing. Since it's like this, then I'll kindly accept it. While Dong Fengxian howled with laughter, he stuffed the bottle into his chest pocket. Su Luo's brows slightly wrinkled where no one could see. Seeing Su Luo's expression was unaffected, Dong Fengxian's laughter became even more complacent. There are also other medicinal pills, right? Take it all out. Dong Fengxian's voice was deep and sinister, extending his evil clutches toward Su Luo. Other things? What other things do you want? Su Luo's brows were tightly knotted. Medicinal pills, crystal stones, and also the treasures you got from drawing prizes. Dong Fengxian seemed to be very familiar with this matter. Su Luo coldly slanted him a glance. She remembered that when she was drawing prizes in the first challenge, Dong Fengxian wasn't at the scene. It could be seen that Li Aochen must have told him. Going to give or not? Dong Fengxian smiled evilly, walking toward Su Luo, step by step. Then he leaned over, looking down at her from above. If I said I won't give it to you? Su Luo smiled faintly, seemingly unconcerned. Dong Fengxian rubbed his chin and smiled coldly. Don't give? Then, his lecherous gaze stared at Su Luo, full of deep meaning. What do you want to do? Su Luo coldly slanted him a glance. Nothing if you don't give, I'm afraid your virginity. While Dong Fengxian smiled sinisterly, he also extended his claws. Dong Fengxian, you dare. Su Luo somewhat anxiously yelled out loud. In here, there really isn't anything that I Dong Fengxian won't dare to do. Dong Fengxian's smile was demonically alluring and full of malice. Didn't you harm Yao Yao until her reputation was destroyed? Then I'll let you taste this feeling. Just at this time, in Su Luo's mind, came the little stone's voice. The little stone said a sentence, and this sentence seemed to reverse Su Luo's predicament. Su Luo pretended to panic and stuffed all the crystal stones and medicinal pills into Dong Fengxian's hand. You want it, then take it. Take it all. Before she finished speaking, Su Luo's figure quickly retreated backwards. Dong Fengxian saw Su Luo run away so quickly. A bad premonition suddenly appeared in his heart. But when he reacted, this matter was already too late. Now a thunderous snarl came from behind Dong Fengxian. Dong Fengxian subconsciously turned his head back. Afterwards, he saw the battle god puppet standing straight up behind him, pair of deep green eyes staring at him, shooting out bloodthirsty, savage rays of light. Dong Fengxian's heart immediately lifted up. There was still a faint trace of a lucky feeling in his heart. One must know that this battle god puppet had absorbed a lot of crystal stones belonging to him that had spirit force. It shouldn't move against him, right? At this time, This same question also appeared in Su Luo's head. But compared to Dongfang Xian, Su Luo was a lot more blessed, because the little stone told her the truth. The little stone's voice was faint, but very clear. Dongfang Xian is too ridiculous. Before the battle god puppet had used up all its spirit force, he actually fed it more food. Could it be he still thinks this battle god puppet will become his? Su Luo, hearing this, directly sprayed out a mouthful of laughter in her heart. Dongfang Xian's luck was really bad, right? There actually was this kind of thing. Chapter 1768, Battle God Puppet. 1. Because the little stone's words clearly told her, Dongfang Xian had fed all the crystal stones on his body to the battle god puppet. But the result was to make wedding clothes for other people, and this other person was Su Luo. As long as she thought of this truth, Su Luo had the urge to burst out into laughter. Now the battle god puppet had already walked to behind Dongfang Xian, step by step. It was only a step away from him. Dongfang Xian's expression became very ugly. Shock, horror and disbelief flashed by in his mind one by one. Battle god puppet's expression was gloomy. Its face was even more murderous looking. Dongfang Xian, seeing the situation was wrong, immediately turned, wanting to run. But it was already too late. One only saw the battle god puppet's long arm make a grab, and Dongfang Xian was seized firmly in its hand. His pair of legs stretched out, struggling helplessly, he couldn't use a bit of strength. Su Luo, looking at this, her heart was extremely delighted, had the delighted feeling of fortune rising and falling. The battle god puppet lifted Dongfang Xian, both hands holding him up high. Then it used all its strength to toss him. One could only hear a burst of wind whistle past. Dongfang Xian's body flew backwards at a fast speed. Bang! A clear sound of something heavy landing on the ground sounded. Dongfang Xian fell down far, far away, blood spraying out wildly from his mouth. He wanted to crawl up, but because of being seriously injured, he had no way to do so and only struggled painfully. It was just like before. After using this move, the battle god puppet foolishly stood there motionless. Then, its figure swayed and its butt directly sat on the ground. So many crystal stones could only maintain its energy for one move and nothing more. Su Luo helplessly glared at the battle god puppet. Then she turned and immediately ran towards Dongfang Xian, directly sending out attack after attack. Such a good opportunity was fleeting. She couldn't let Dongfang Xian run away again. But Dongfang Xian being injured was only being injured. His strength was still very good. Battling with Su Luo, he could still gain the upper hand by a little. In one inattentive moment from Su Luo, he slipped away. Watching the quickly fleeing Dongfang Xian, she then turned her head back to look at the battle god puppet sitting on its butt. A thin line of perspiration appeared on Su Luo's forehead. She thought a bit, but in the end, she still ran to the battle god puppet's side. At this time, Su Luo didn't have any more crystal stones, but she still had things that contained spirit force. Because during the first challenge, she got a lot of rewards, since she almost emptied out the entire shelf. Su Luo took out 3 treasures and fed it to the battle god puppet. As a result, this thing came back to life again. When Su Luo brought the battle god puppet to chase over, up ahead, Dongfang Xian's figure had already disappeared. But Su Luo wasn't a bit discouraged. Because the battle god puppet's skills to trace, and its speed was extremely awesome. Su Luo simply stopped walking by herself. Her footsteps were graceful as she spun in place and got onto battle god puppet's shoulder. Then, she gave the order for the battle god puppet to pursue Dongfang Xian. Fortune sure enough takes turns. Dongfang Xian ran very fast, so fast as to be astonishing. In fact, if there was time, what he ought to do was to sit down and heal his injuries. But now, the situation wouldn't give him time to heal. Before, Dongfang Xian ran to chase after Su Luo, but now, everything was reversed. Dongfang Xian cut a sorry figure, like the target of scorn. His speed was so fast, simply hadn't seen it in his lifetime. Dongfang Xian didn't run back using the original route, because there were soldiers pursuing behind him. While up ahead, Nangong Luyan was like a tiger watching his prey. Therefore, since it's already broken, he simply rushed towards the front of the Black Lake. Crossing the Black Lake, up ahead was the maze. Such a huge maze stood in front of his eyes. Chapter 1769, Battle God Puppet 2. The earth yellow-colored wall was a dazzling sight. Don't know what material was used to create it. It was hard and firm. Even if Dongfang Xian was to slap down, he still wouldn't be able to leave a trace. Dongfang Xian looked at the entrance in front, turned his head to look and discovered that Su Luo, sitting on the battle god puppet's shoulder, was rushing over. Dongfang Xian didn't have time to think and raised his speed to the fastest. In a flying speed he rushed in like a bullet. Su Luo could faintly see a black dot hesitate outside the maze. In the blink of an eye, that little dot disappeared. Now she became anxious. She pulled the battle god puppet and in a loud voice ordered, quickly rush in. Any later, and it will be too late." Because Su Luo knew that the roads inside the maze were complicated. As long as you went in, wanting to snatch Dongfang Xian out would be very difficult. Dongfang Xian knew about elder ancestor Mo's matter. If she let him leave the secret roaming dragon territory alive, it would be very detrimental to Su Luo. So no matter what, Su Luo must intercept Dongfang Xian inside secret roaming dragon territory. As a result, Su Luo guided the battle god puppet to move forward quickly. But when Su Luo arrived at the maze after urging the battle god puppet on, Dongfang Xian's figure had already disappeared up front. Hateful. Su Luo cursed in a low voice. Up ahead, the roads in the maze crisscrossed, repeatedly overlapping. How could she find the real road among such complicated and tangled paths? This was a very difficult task. Su Luo couldn't help but lower her head to ask the battle god puppet. But the battle god puppet, besides being able to consume large amounts of crystal stones and that terrifying move, it didn't seem to have any other uses. The technique to follow someone's trail and others, don't even think it could do it. Su Luo sighed, depressed. She lifted her head and looked at the 3 directions up ahead. 3 directions, 3 different roads. In the end, which one should she walk? No one could give Su Luo the correct answer. Just walk forward. Su Luo closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her eyes were bright. They had a faint trace of seriousness. The path ahead was full of twists and turns before another fork with 3 roads. Every time, Su Luo would choose the path directly in front, following it to the end. But along the way, there wasn't a trace of Dongfang Xian's figure. Where was Dongfang Xian right now? Ever since he ran into the maze to hide, Dongfang Xian was like a dry fish that traveled to the bottom of the sea. His life got a breather. Su Luo went forward all the way, but Dongfang Xian didn't go forward for long. After the 10th fork in the road he stopped. He sensed the aura around him and discovered there wasn't any aura of living things. So he sat down cross-legged and entered the state of healing. So no matter how fast Su Luo's speed, she only brushed by Dongfang Xian. Moreover, the distance between the two became further and further apart. Time passed, day after day. Because Su Luo couldn't find Dongfang Xian, she became fretful. Because Dongfang Xian had enough time, his internal injuries healed very quickly. Although he didn't completely recover, he still recovered about 80% of his strength. This day, Dongfang Xian slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was sinisterly cold and ruthless. Su Luo, a gentleman's revenge. 10 years is not too late. Dongfang Xian mumbled this to himself. Now Su Luo had the battle god puppet protecting and assisting at her side. Temporarily he couldn't move her. But there would be a day when he would let Su Luo die very miserably. Dongfang Xian turned and got up. He was preparing to leave this maze immediately, because this maze gave him a very bad feeling. However, when he was preparing to leave, a cold figure appeared in front of Dongfang Xian. Nangong Luyan. Seeing that handsome figure that was full of deterrence force, Dongfang Xian's figure became stiff in an instant. Chapter 1770, Battle God Puppet 3. Just like he said, Nangong Liuyun's pair of beautiful eyes that was ice-cold, black like ink was fixed on his face. Nangong Liuyun's footsteps were firm and powerful as he walked towards Dongfang Xian, step by step. At this moment, Nangong Liuyun's body gave off a formless deterrence power, sharp and strict like an exceptional, cold unsheathed sword, piercing people's ears with droning sounds, making it impossible for people not to feel chills in their hearts. Dongfang Xian subconsciously retreated a step. After retreating a step, he realized he just did something foolish. As a result, he stood firmly again and gave a light cough to cover up the embarrassment from just now. Nangong Liuyun's thick sword-like brows rose up slightly. Step by step he approached Dongfang Xian. His gaze was cold as a deep pool as he said in an icy tone, "Where is Luo Luo?" Mentioning Su Luo, the rage in Dongfang Xian's heart soared up immediately. He gave a cold jeer. "You are asking now? Don't you think it's too late?" Nangong Liuyun's eyes suddenly darkened, flashing with cold light. His long arm extended and grabbed Dongfang Xian by his collar, and lifted him up. His icy eyes exploded out with boiling killing intent. "Speak!" The full of deterrence power angry shout shook Dongfang Xian's brain, until he became stupid. A hard-to-subdue terrified shock appeared in Dongfang Xian's eyes. If he didn't remember wrong before, when he departed from Nangong Luyun, he was still commander rank. How was it that in the blink of an eye, his strength had soared so quickly? Dongfang Xian knew his own strength has been restored to 80%. He was at least at the middle of saint rank, but he was actually grabbed by Nangong Luyun. In the end, what happened? Could it be that not only was Nangong Luyun not killed by the giant dragon, he actually profited from that disastrous opportunity? The more Dongfang Xian thought about it, the more shocked and regretful he became. In the end, he directly stared at Nangong Luyun. "Where is the giant dragon? You think it still has a chance to live?" Nangong Liuyun's arm tightened as he gave a cold humph. Dongfang Xian felt as if his throat was cut off. A sudden suffocating feeling of nearing death arose. This feeling terrified him and made him panic. "Speak!" Nangong Luyun exploded out with a shout, his tone full of impatience. A cold meaning flashed through Dongfang Xian's lowered eyes. Based on strength, he already wasn't Nangong Liuyun's opponent. If he didn't take some steps, then today he would die here. He had just escaped from Su Luo's pursuit. Immediately, he landed in Nangong Liuyun's killing site. Dongfang Xian felt that his luck was extremely bad. In the end, what could he do to mess up Nangong Liuyun's calmness and logical reasoning? To tear a hole in his spirit? A light flashed through Dongfang Xian's eyes. Very quickly, he had an idea. "You really want to know about Su Luo's news?" Dongfang Xian pushed Nangong Liuyun's hand away. Nangong Liuyun's black pupils narrowed, staring at him unblinkingly, not saying a word. "In fact, Su Luo," Dongfang Xian gave a light sigh. "In fact, how is Su Luo right now? Even I don't know. Hope this girl is worthy of heaven's help." "What happened?" Nangong Liuyun's expression was still calm, but the veins on his arms in the wide sleeves exploded out. Clearly, he was extremely angry. With this start, Dongfang Xian started to make up vivid lies. He told about Su Luo being chased into the bottom of the Black Lake. His words were 90% real and 10% fake, making it hard for people to find a hole in it. When he was describing the story, after Su Luo went into the Black Lake, she encountered the battle god puppet's pursuit with intent to kill. Then there wasn't an after. Chapter 1771, Explode 1. "You mean," Nangong Luyun fumed with rage as he said this, stressing each word. "That girl, I reckon, has already a lass." Dongfang Xian slowly sighed. "Really?" Nangong Luyun smiled coldly. It was sinister and terrible. Not waiting for Dongfang Xian to say the next word, Nangong Liuyun's hands quickly flipped over, forming a complicated hand seal. And these hand seals filled with black energy came from all directions, condensing into a firm and strong wall of swords, trapping Dongfang Xian firmly inside. The biting cold wind whistled past, huge snow freezing over everything, turning it into an area of whiteness. Inside there was only Dongfang Xian's figure. Before Dongfang Xian returned to his senses, the swords in all four directions shot towards him all at once. At that time, Dongfang Xian had used this move to trap Su Luo, making it impossible for her to escape. Now fortune changed. He finally experienced the suffering from this scene. Numerous snow-white blades like sharp fangs whistled over. Dongfang Xian used all his strength to resist. The two experts at the top of the world fought against each other. Inside this sealed room of wind knives, the intensity of the fight was marvelous. For a period of time, it was hard to determine the victor. After 10 moves, the result was clear. Nangong Luyan was still as handsome as before, his hair was neat as usual, his clothing wasn't a bit in disarray. In contrast, one only saw that right now, Dongfang Xian's hair was in a mess, clothing damaged, face white as paper. Although he did his best to seem calm, however, his slightly trembling feet revealed the shock in his heart. Dongfang Xian stared at Nangong Luyan, eyes full of disbelief. When did Nangong Luyan become so strong? Actually able to occupy the upper hand so steadily? Dongfang Xian discovered he simply didn't have the confidence to defeat Nangong Luyan. Nangong Luyan smiled coldly. His clearly jointed fingers clenched his neck, gaze like a knife. As matters stand, still won't speak the truth? Dongfang Xian's mouth hooked into a ghost of a smile. You really don't think that like this, you will have victory within grasp? Nangong Luyan's eyes had a cold light. Just at this time, suddenly, a thread of seriousness appeared on Dongfang Xian's face. Soon after, his body slowly started to swell up. His body was like a balloon, starting to expand. At the same time, behind Dongfang Xian's figure, a faint huge dragon figure could be seen. This is... Nangong Luyan suddenly had a bad feeling. In the next instant, he wanted to squash this danger before it sprouted. However, before he could move, the spirit force around Dongfang Xian's body was so rich as to give off sizzling sounds, making everything thoroughly disordered and almost about to explode. Such a strong spirit force. Nangong Luyan sensed danger and subconsciously retreated. At this moment, around Dongfang Xian was a wild and strong force. He lifted his hands high, howling towards the sky. In the wake of this howl, the entire wall of swords had traces of collapsing. Nangong Luyan's hand quickly formed seals. One after another, white lights shot towards that wall of swords, helping to maintain that wall of swords in its complete condition. But with the passing of time, Nangong Luyan felt the pressure become bigger and bigger. Dongfang Xian actually had such a trump card in his hand? Nangong Luyan's brows were tightly knotted. With the passing of time, Dongfang Xian's strength was still soaring. In the end, one only heard the sound of an explosion. Crashing sounds, a countless number of wind swords disintegrated into nothingness in the air. Frantic spirit force escaped in all four directions. The air sizzled with pitter-patter sounds. At this time, Dongfang Xian's head was lowered, looking ahead. Chapter 1772, Counterattack. 1. His face was full of scarlet wisps of blood. That pair of eyes with two ignited raging flames really looked terrifying. Soon after, his gaze was fixed on Nangong Luyan's face. Momentarily, all around was quiet. So quiet that one could hear the sound of wind blowing and leaves landing. Suddenly, the corner of Dongfang Xian's thin lips revealed a cold smile. In the depths of his eyes was a bloodthirsty and cold meaning. Nangong Luyan, next year today is the anniversary of your death. Nangong Luyan's brows were slightly wrinkled. If his senses weren't wrong, then currently, Dongfang Xian's strength was already at the summit of Saint stage. Really was a metamorphosis, time and time again, stronger than before. However, the corner of Nangong Luyan's mouth pulled as he laughed out loud. His gaze was serene like a deep pool, coldly shooting a glance at Dongfang Xian. You are certain you can win? Then try it. Dongfang Xian hadn't finished speaking, and his hand had already formed seals. One after another, fatal moves hacked towards Nangong Luyan. Momentarily, strong hit against strong. All around, one half of the world was ice and snow, the other half was a stormy world. As if the two worlds were colliding together. For a short period of time, the weather was bitterly cold. An icy wind that was bitterly cold blew all around on the wall, that was about to collapse. It was as if at any time it would crumble. Following the gradual passing of time, bit by bit, the smile at the corner of Dongfang Xian's mouth became more reckless. Because the ice and snow world that he controlled, its range was slowly expanding, silently extending towards Nangong Luyan's area. Nangong Luyan, in contrast. Right now, his face was calm as water, but his bright and clear forehead was covered in a layer of perspiration. His face was pale without a thread of blood. From his tightly clenched teeth, it revealed how great the pressure he was under. Dongfang Xian pressed forward step by step, while Nangong Luyan retreated step by step. This was the so-called the disappearance of the distance between them. The closer Dongfang Xian pressed forward, the more imposing his manner. In contrast, the world of storm Nangong Luyan controlled got smaller as he retreated step by step. The corner of Dongfang Xian's mouth became bigger and bigger. His proud appearance was full of sneering and disdain at Nangong Luyan. Nangong Luyan's gaze was like the abyss, calm as water without a ripple. Sneer. Dongfang Xian jeered. One only saw his hand pressed down with pressure. One only saw a white light flash by, and the ice and snow world Dongfang Xian controlled became a lot larger again. It swallowed a large part of Nangong Luyan's world of storm. Nangong Luyan, now you are on the verge of death, then let me tell you the truth. Dongfang Xian faced the sky and laughed out loud. Maybe you think that even if you die, it'll be fine because Su Luo would be waiting for you down there, and you guys can meet again? Ha ha ha, I'll tell you the truth. In fact, Su Luo didn't die. But a pity you are about to die. You guys are preordained to be separated by fate. With this kind of result, Dongfang Xian was very happy. He even decided in the future that when Su Luo ended up in his hands, he wouldn't let her die so easily. Because he didn't want this pair of lovers to meet underground. He wanted them to be separated in life and death. Dongfang Xian gave a provocative laugh, but his reply was Nangong Luoyun's silence. But Dongfang Xian's laugh became more unrestrained, because he saw the perspiration on Nangong Luoyun's forehead form a droplet as it rolled down. Not only that, right now his entire body seemed to be fished out of the bottom of the river, damp and cutting a very sorry figure. Nangong Luoyun, time to leave your last words. Dongfang Xian used the victor's attitude of looking down from above, and said this proudly. Chapter 1773, Counterattack 2. However, although Nangong Luoyun retreated under the shadows of the approaching footsteps, he was still too disdainful to even look at Dongfang Xian. In Nangong Luoyun's eyes, right now, Dongfang Xian was merely a jumping clown. Dongfang Xian saw his own clown-like appearance of jumping up and down in Nangong Luoyun's pair of clear and penetrating eyes, and his heart was enraged. He had an even stronger feeling of inferiority. The extremely angry Dongfang Xian concentrated all the spirit force in his body, and smashed it all towards Nangong Luoyun's forehead in one hit. But at this time, Nangong Luoyun smiled faintly. Just when Dongfang Xian's fist was about to smash over, one only saw a strange hand extend out from Nangong Luoyun's back, blocking that violent hit from Dongfang Xian. Dongfang Xian stared blankly, looking in disbelief at Nangong Luoyun. Nangong Luoyun smiled coldly. Think this is inconceivable? Dongfang Xian nodded his head, stupefied. He couldn't believe why the move he was most proud of would so easily be blocked by Nangong Luoyun. Didn't you just enter the saint rank? Dongfang Xian felt this was inconceivable. He remembered it very clearly. Nangong Luoyun only broke into the saint rank after entering the secret dragon roaming territory. How could he become so powerful so suddenly? Nangong Luoyun suddenly laughed lightly. His expression was arrogant as he looked down from high above. Entering the saint rank? I haven't been that rank since long ago. Finished speaking, one only saw him lift up his right palm. The bones in his hand and fingers were clear, long and white. So beautiful as to be unimaginable. But now, this right hand flashed with a white light, as if full of unimaginable strength. As if endless strength was spreading out from the center of this palm. Divine. Divine right hand? Dongfang Xian's voice carried a trace of trembling. He lifted his head up and stared at Nangong Luoyun in disbelief with a dumbstruck expression. Because he never imagined that the divine right hand, the shadow of that huge dragon was most proud of, would end up in Nangong Luoyun's hand. In the end, what happened? Dongfang Xian's heart was worried, anxious and angry. His pair of eyes was like ignited flames, glowering at Nangong Luoyun and spitting out fire. Nangong Luoyun gave a light laugh. There was no trace of cutting a sorry figure on his clean and handsome face. It was already restored to the normal state of handsome indifference. Rest assured, I will definitely go find Su Luo. The corner of Nangong Luoyun's mouth revealed a demonic wanton sneer. Divine right hand was indeed the shadow of the huge dragon's trump card. But when he got rid of the shadow of the huge dragon, by chance, it was passed on to him. This helped him profit from disaster, giving him endless benefit. Seeing Dongfang Xian again, he deliberately revealed a weak self to the enemy. Because he knew, Dongfang Xian's mouth was very hard. Using tough methods might not be able to get Su Luo's information from him. As a result, he deliberately hid his cards. Just when Dongfang Xian was most proud, brash and arrogant, he finally told the truth about Su Luo's news. "You hateful." Dongfang Xian finally realized Nangong Liuyun's intentions, and fiercely cursed him in his heart. Cursed Nangong Liuyun for being shameless. But as matters stood, what could he do? He had already proudly made public the news pertaining to Su Luo. "There is completely no purpose for you, therefore go peacefully, my first senior brother." Nangong Liuyun's tone was light and slow as it fluttered by in a careless manner. He closed his eyes. What appeared was images of their friendship being from the same sect. But when he opened his eyes again, the bottom of his eyes were clear without a ripple. Not a trace of his mood could be seen. "Divine right hand!" Nangong Liuyun shouted vigorously. Chapter 1774, Counterattack 3. Soon after, under the situation where Dongfang Xian couldn't avoid it, his body that had mostly recovered with great difficulty was beaten back into a scarecrow. Powerless to resist, he was tossed back. One only heard a burst of crashing sounds. Dongfang Xian smashed over. The originally hard as boulders gold-colored wall was like tofu pieces, breaking into fine powder. In the end, Dongfang Xian's body landed heavily on the ground. And immediately, a huge human-shaped pit appeared in the even surface of the ground. While Dongfang Xian's body laid in the ground, forming a strange posture, an indifferent light smile appeared in Nangong Liuyun's eyes. He slowly walked forward with a steady pace until he appeared in front of Dongfang Xian. His body crouched down as he mockingly looked at Dongfang Xian laying in the pit. His tone was clear but carried traces of endless mockery. "This is your last trump card? It's only SOO." Right now, Dongfang Xian was extremely indignant. He bit his lower lips until a line of dark red blood appeared. The blood followed the corner of his mouth and flowed down. Originally full of confidence, originally it was all within his grasp, originally he was the victor, but Nangong Liuyun's appearance ruthlessly crushed his beautiful dream. Dongfang Xian used strength to clench his hand into fists at his sides. His grip was very tight. His pair of bloodshot eyes stared fixedly at Nangong Liuyun, wishing to glare out a bloody hole in his body. At this time, the silent person had been changed to Dongfang Xian. An indifferent smile hung at the corner of Nangong Liuyun's mouth. "Now you have the time to leave your last words." Dongfang Xian's fists clenched even tighter. He used force to wipe away the bloodstain at the corner of his mouth and lifted his eyes. Gaze cold as ice, he staring fixedly at Nangong Liuyun. "You really want to kill me?" Dongfang Xian's smile was cold and ruthless, carrying a trace of frosty air. How could it be false? Nangong Liuyun's tone was even really asking to be spanked. Dongfang Xian saw real killing intent in Nangong Liuyun's eyes. This represented that Nangong Liuyun's heart was completely set on killing him. And people that Nangong Liuyun targeted, almost all of them had passed away. But scoff. Dongfang Xian suddenly gave a cold sneer. His gaze was cold as the stars, casting a mocking glance at Nangong Liuyun. "I dare to bet if you know the truth, not only won't you kill me, in contrast you will save me." When Dongfang Xian said this, his expression was very proud, the confidence coming from the bones. But he still gave people a serious and grave feeling. Nangong Liuyun's brows wrinkled slightly, because his sixth sense had always been accurate. For example, Nangong Liuyun's hand formed seals. A formidable and sharp wind blade directly flew to the edge of Dongfang Xian's neck. As long as Nangong Liuyun moved his fingertip, the wind blade would cut open Dongfang Xian's neck, killing him on the spot. Dongfang Xian's eyes narrowed, but his smile still remained as he coldly humphed. "If you kill me, then you guys don't even think of leaving this secret roaming dragon territory." When Dongfang Xian said this, he was all smiles, full of confidence. If it was Su Luo, then she definitely wouldn't believe it, but it was Nangong Liuyun. His deep gaze stared at Dongfang Xian, eyes like pitch-black vortex. It made Dong Fengxian's head ache painfully. Just when Dong Fengxian was distracted, Nangong Luoyun had finished searching his brain. And the result of Nangong Luoyun's search made his brows tighten even more. It seemed Dong Fengxian didn't lie. Chapter 1775. Suddenly everything becomes clear. 1. Before, he had a fortuitous encounter and got the huge dragon shadow's inheritance. As long as Dong Fengxian dies, then the entire secret roaming dragon territory would close. Then he and Luo girl would never be able to go out and see the light of day again. Right now, Dong Fengxian still didn't know that his memories had been searched by Nangong Luoyun just now. He was still trying to sell the climax of the story. One only saw him lift his chin slightly, arrogantly lifting the side of his face and glancing at Nangong Luoyun from the side, as he coldly asked, "You want to know?" In fact, this search of the mind wasted a lot of spirit force. With regards to experts at Dong Fengxian's level, you still need a bit of good luck to control the ability for a short while. Now Nangong Luoyun coldly smiled and smashed another forceful fist over. In an instant, Dong Fengxian's nose became crooked. Blood rushed out from his nose like a fountain. Dong Fengxian felt the sharp pain and started to clamor loudly. Nangong Luoyun's heart was also full of pent-up frustrations. Originally, he wanted to kill Dong Fengxian to solve all the troubles. Afterwards, he didn't expect to get the inheritance from the huge dragon's shadow. Before he exited this maze, he really couldn't kill Dong Fengxian. If you want to open the door to the last challenge, without my spirit force, it's impossible. Dong Fengxian saw a bloodthirsty cold intent flash through Nangong Luoyun's eyes, and hurriedly reminded in a loud voice. Without the help of his spirit force, it was simply impossible to open the doors to the last challenge. Moreover, all of them wouldn't be able to get out. They would forever be locked in this secret roaming dragon territory, even if your luck is good. Nangong Luoyun's expression was calm as water as he stood up. He cast a cold sidelong glance at Dong Fengxian. "Just let your body's cultivation remain for a few days then." Saying up to here, Nangong Luoyun's ice-cold eyes once again took a deep glance at Dong Fengxian. Then, he immediately turned and left. The two moves just now, he had already left some deep internal injuries on Dong Fengxian's body. Adding it to the internal injuries that he still hadn't completely healed from, these layers of injuries, if Dong Fengxian could keep his life, it was already pretty good. He shouldn't have another chance to stir up trouble again. Nangong Luoyun was eager to go look for Su Luo, so he left Dong Fengxian in place. But Nangong Luoyun never imagined that this decision would cast a dark shadow over his and Su Luo's future. Nangong Luoyun quickly left. Right now, the most important thing was for him to find Su Luo. And how was Su Luo right now? In order to search for Dong Fengxian's shadow, Su Luo kept going forward. Just how many forks were in this maze? Not long after, Su Luo wasn't even clear where she was in the maze. After walking for a long time between walls, Su Luo finally stopped because of exhaustion. She wiped away the sweat on her forehead and gave a helpless sigh. Don't know where Dong Fengxian is in the end. Could it be he is somewhere behind? Thinking of this possibility, Su Luo had the urge to cry. Immediately Nangong Luoyun's figure appeared in her head. She remembered when she was being chased by Dong Fengxian. Nangong Luoyun was still fighting with that huge dragon's shadow. The situation at that time looked extremely dangerous. Don't know what happened in the end. Don't know if Nangong Luoyun would be in danger or not. Now in this maze, there were layers of road. She couldn't reach the end up front. Want to return using the original road, but she couldn't walk back. Really made a person collapse and want to cry. Su Luo wandered around for a long time in the maze, but discovered that after walking around, she seemed to be circling in place. This kind of discovery made her mood drop to the bottom. She knew that if she continued to rush about randomly, she would never walk out of this maze. Chapter 1776. Suddenly everything becomes clear, too. So Su Luo had no choice but to stop, using everything to study this maze. The maze was very tall, no less than 30 meters high. All around was a very thick wall. Su Luo used all her strength and smashed her fist over. but she only left a slight imprint on the wall. Moreover, very quickly, this imprint was gone, with the wall restored to its original state. As if Su Luo hadn't done anything. This made Su Luo's brows tighten. Don't know why, she had an absurd thought. As if this maze had wisdom and a spirit. As if it was alive. But very quickly, Su Luo tossed this thought to the back of her head. Because who could imagine a maze having wisdom and a spirit? But this maze gave Su Luo a very familiar feeling. What was it? Su Luo slanted her head as she continuously thought back. After thinking for a long time, she still didn't get a solution. Su Luo had no choice but to stand up, supported by the wall. However, just at this split second, that heavy layer of fog seemed to be brushed away in her mind. Immediately, everything became clear. Demon Cave. Yes, it's exactly like the Demon Cave. Su Luo suddenly recalled. At that time, wasn't she and Beichening trapped in a square stone prison? At that time, she also couldn't come out, until she practiced and learned nothingness of space. Thinking of this, an excited color appeared on Su Luo's fair face. She looked close to jubilation. How could she forget such a useful skill? Really ought to die. If one must know, after her nothingness of space covered her whole body, she was able to go through walls. To speculate based on this, wouldn't these walls be? Su Luo's eyes were bright as crystal stones, sparkling and flickering with light. Didn't have time to think carefully. Su Luo started to mobilize her spirit force and envelope herself with nothingness of space. In the end, she slowly walked towards the wall step by step. Wenton, actually really able to go through walls. After discovering this fact, Su Luo immediately had an urge to place her hand on her forehead. How could she be so stupid? Clearly, it was very easy for her to think of this method. However, because of the blocked thought, she couldn't recall it for a long time. Rather, it was only after knocking against the south wall and walking so many pointless roads did she find enlightenment. However, fortunately, discovering it now was not too late. Finally, she wasn't stupid until the end. The four walls around was incomparably hard. Although Su Luo had nothingness of space and could pass by going through the walls, however, she couldn't increase her speed. Right now, Su Luo didn't know where she was, but the benefit of going through the walls was that she could go straight in one direction. After settling on one direction, Su Luo started her travel through the maze. It sounded very simple, but until she started to do it, Su Luo realized that going through walls wasn't really that easy, because there was a countless number of walls that crisscrossed. Su Luo became dizzy just going through them, till she almost collapsed. Moreover, this kind of action really wasted spirit force. Walked straight for a long time. Just when Su Luo's head felt dizzy, suddenly, Su Luo felt something flash in front of her eyes. When she fixed her gaze again, she found herself inside a large hall. Compared with the narrow maze, the large size was relatively terrifying. Here seemed to be the main hall of a palace. All around were white jade walls. Underneath was white jade marble, and ice jade pillars stood tall, reaching to the sky. Dragons and phoenixes carved on the pillars were vivid and lifelike. Chapter 1777. Suddenly everything became clear. 3. Where is this? Su Luo stared stupidly at the scene in front of her eyes. Standing foolishly in place, she didn't return to her senses for a long time. Suddenly, a tiny sound attracted Su Luo's attention. On the left side of the hall that was as wide as a plaza, there was a faint, fragmented sound. In this quiet ambience, it gave one a strange feeling. Su Luo's heart was slightly apprehensive, but at the same time, her curiosity was piqued. Moreover, besides that sound, Su Luo could find no other living creature. In order to explore the situation here, with rapt attention, Su Luo held her breath, slowed her footsteps, and silently approached. Rustling, a strange sound came from around the corner, like a rat nibbling on a peach it held. But here. Su Luo looked around. If she did not guess wrongly, this should be the center of the maze. Just now, she released her spirit sense, and couldn't find any trace of living creatures. Closer, getting closer. Only 10 meters away from here. Just at this moment. Suddenly, a purple figure quickly rushed towards Su Luo. Before Su Luo could react, that black shadow had already firmly knocked into Su Luo. Its strength was very strong, so strong as to be unimaginable. Su Luo was knocked over in her moment of distraction. Don't know if Su Luo's luck was so bad that the back of her head knocked against the ground. Momentarily she was dazed. Then she sank into a swampy darkness. She was actually knocked unconscious. At this moment, the purple little black shadow stood by Su Luo's side. A pair of jet-black bright eyes blinked as it looked at Su Luo. Its eyes didn't have the viciousness from before. It looked perplexed and helpless. It extended its small furry paw and lightly touched Su Luo's white as jade finger. That very careful and gentle curious appearance. If a person was to see this, their heart would melt. But right now, a tall bump had swelled up on the back of Su Luo's head. Having sunk into unconsciousness, it wasn't that easy to wake her up. Therefore, no matter how the little thing bumped Su Luo, there were no indication that she would wake up. The little thing saw Su Luo didn't respond, and immediately, it became anxious. A thin layer of mist covered its clear and transparent pair of jet-black eyes. It had an expression of being about to cry. What to do? The little thing sucked on its little paw, watching Su Luo full of attachment, very innocently and adorably. It looked extremely cute. At this moment, Su Luo was lying flat on the ground, motionless, with both eyes tightly closed and completely unaware. The little thing looked at Su Luo, then turned its head to look at the corner not far away. For a moment, it had difficulty choosing. However, the little thing finally made a difficult decision. One only saw it blow bubbles towards Su Luo. That's right, it was like the 7 colored bubbles Su Luo saw in the modern world that was blown into the air. The little thing blew bubbles, and there were more and more bubbles that danced in the air. It was very diverse in size and color, giving people a dreamlike feeling. Then these bubbles actually lifted up Su Luo's body. These bubbles formed a stretcher shape and appeared under Su Luo's body, lifting her up, suspending her body high up in midair. At this time, the colorful bubbles escorted Su Luo, carrying her seemingly without anyone's control. She was carried forward. In the corner that gave off a sound, didn't know what the little thing did, and a thick door opened on the wall. Soon after, Su Luo, escorted by the bubbles, was delivered into the door. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.